Over the last few years, I've brought you guys along with me to see some amazing car collections. And I'm not talking about museums, I'm not talking about big warehouses, I'm talking about real world hot rod hoarders. And I use that term in the most endearing way. These collections have amazing pieces in them: hot rods, muscle cars, drag cars, parts, old wheels, a little bit of everything. And I picked 6 of my favorite collections to put together into this compilation video. This is a lot of fun, and just bear in mind that I shot this stuff several years ago and I didn't quite have my camera technology figured out yet, but a lot of great stuff in this video. I hope you guys enjoy it. On this episode of Hot Rod Hoarders, we're visiting Tony McConnell in Louisville, Kentucky. He is a die-hard Ford guy, and he's got a crazy collection of old school drag cars that he saved from the woods, from fields, from barns and buildings all over the country. And we're going to take a look at everything he's got, the cars, the parts, and we're even going to go inside of his house in the basement to check out what has to be one of the largest collections of vintage slot cars in the world. So I came to know Tony a few years ago, became friends with him on Facebook, saw some of the things that he fooled with, and I decided that somewhere down the line I needed to visit this guy. Well, as it turns out, he visited me first. He came and bought the all fiberglass 1966 Ford Falcon that we had a year or so ago. And that really kind of got the friendship started, because he realized once he got to our place that we were very similar. We're both crazy about old school drag cars and hot rods. And I had no idea the extent of his collection until I had the opportunity to visit his place. The first thing that I saw was this killer Ford ramp truck. It's got a Falcon drag car on the back of it, and this thing is very usable. It's got a Cummins diesel engine in it. This thing hits the road good. He hauls his race car with it every time he goes to the track. As I rounded the corner to meet Tony in his shop, I could hear some banging and clanging, some grinding, some serious work going on. And over all of that, I could hear Tony talking to his buddies and everybody that was there in the shop hanging out. And I knew I was at the right place. So I pretty much just hit record on my camera, followed him around. But we're starting out in his shop, where he's got several projects going on here. This is the main area of the shop where he does most of his work. Inside of here, he's got a really cool Mercury Colony Park station wagon. Now this is what he considers his retirement project. He's going to build this car and drive it across country, and this thing is killer. It is a 4-door hardtop station wagon, so you notice it has no pillar between the 2 doors, and this thing is solid and clean, and he's done a ton of work to get it to this point. He's actually going to pull a vintage travel trailer with it, and he's planning on just taking big trips and going all over the country in this very cool station wagon. So the whole reason I came here was for the vintage drag cars. So let's get right into that. The first one that I spotted was this absolutely cool Opel drag car. This thing is super small. It has to be extremely lightweight. And I noticed that the scoop was off to the side, and I already knew that Tony is pretty crazy about inline 6-cylinder cars. And I had no idea that you could even make a 6-cylinder sound like this, but listen to this thing. So apparently Tony bought this car just like this. The engine and all that stuff was already done. He doesn't know much of anything about it. He bought it as a complete car. So apparently this thing's got plenty of compression. It's got a big cam, a header that just dumps right out under the passenger side door, and it's got some old school ignition parts, which he says is giving him some problems. But either way, this car is killer. It's got a 1-piece fiberglass front end on it. It's completely gutted out on the inside with an aluminum dash. It does have an AM/FM radio that you can see in there. It's got old school slotted mags on it, some old school looking lettering, and it's just about ready for the track. As I turned around, I saw another Ford inline 6-cylinder engine sitting on an engine stand, and Tony told me to take a closer look to see about this intake manifold that's on this car. And as you can see, Holman Moody. Who in the world has a Holman Moody intake manifold for an inline 6-cylinder? Tony McConnell does. This guy has a little bit of everything, but he has a lot of inline 6-cylinder stuff. Other cool parts in the shop include these extremely long traction bars, which somebody went through the trouble of chrome plating back in the day. I'm not real sure what they came off of, but they're really cool. And then behind that is the side of an old circle track car that Tony raced back in the day. Tony was super excited to show me this 1960 Ford Fairlane. Now this might look like your standard 4-door sedan, and it sort of is. This thing was ordered to look like this, but it was also ordered with a special Y-code engine which was 360 horsepower. Pretty big deal for back in 1960. But later in his life, this car got upgraded big time. It got a Holman Moody 427 engine that made over 600 horsepower. And this thing actually lived a dual life. It was not only a drag car that was raced in Phoenix City, Alabama, it was also a legit moonshine hauling car. It has a modified seat. You can see the indentation here, and that was actually where the guy kept his money and his guns. And this thing is just absolutely killer. It's super solid on the outside, and Tony showed me all the details. The cool custom interior. It's got the wrapped up steering wheel like the old stock car guys used to do. Column mounted tachometer. It's got Stewart Warner gauges in it. This thing's got all sorts of vintage, cool speed parts on it. You'll also notice it's got some old school aircraft seat belts in it. It's even got the date on there. Underneath the back of it, it's got a 9-inch Ford rear end and huge leaf spring packs, which was common for the moonshine cars. He also showed me the fender wells, which have been rolled and kind of beaten out flat to where they could put big slicks on this car. And up front, there's some modifications under the hood where they had rigged up the throttle linkage to work with the 2.4 setup. He said this car was called the Gray Ghost in its day, but as it looks right now, it is just a sinister black car with black steel wheels. Nothing fancy, nothing special, just looks like your regular sedan. But I bet this thing really ran good and surprised a lot of people, including the local law enforcement down in Alabama. Sitting next to the 1960 Ford is a front-engine dragster that Tony had just bought a few days before. He'd gone up into Indiana to buy it, and this thing has some cool history to it. It's a late 50s style car. It has had a few modifications. The front axle doesn't appear to be original to the car. As I'm walking around this thing, I sort of fell in love with it. And even though I've already got 4 front-engine dragsters sitting at the shop, one more might not hurt. So we might strike up some kind of deal on this thing, and I might be taking this thing home to Tennessee. But for right now, let's take a look at it. This car's got an Olds rear end under it that's been cut down. It's got some cool pieces. It's got a Crosley steering box with a really big chrome-plated pitman arm on it. And you know, you'll see that he's just got some roll around wheels on it. The front wheels are actually Kreitz dragster wheels. They're 16-inch, and this thing's just cool. I love the design of it. It reminds me a lot of our car that we dug out of the woods a few years ago. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to go ahead and put a link right here. Go check that out if you get a chance. This thing resembles that car a lot. So I love the home-built 50s cars like this, and I might just have to add it to our collection. Tony's been gathering up old school parts for decades, and just walking around his shop and seeing the stuff hanging on the wall, there's so much cool stuff to see here. The 427 FE valve covers, the leaf spring wheelie bars is one of the coolest things that he's got right here hanging on the wall. An inline shifter for 4-speed. He's got stuff from all generations of drag cars. All of it's hanging here. All of it's got a story behind it. Moving over into the storage part of his shop, the first thing that really got my attention was the 1966 Ford Falcon, which my dad and I sold to Tony about a year or so ago. Now, this car has a completely fiberglass body, a completely custom frame. It was built for match racing back in the mid-60s down in South Carolina, and I did a video on the history of this car, so again, you might want to check that one out. It's a pretty cool piece. Tony's also got tons of tires and wheels stashed away in this part of the shop. Steel wheels, aluminum wheels, racing wheels, all sorts of stuff, all mixed in here, including some pretty rare production wheels. Also in the storage area is Tony's Anglia Gasser, which is a historic drag car named the Tennessee Taxi. And this thing's got crazy engine setback, and of course it's got a Ford inline 6-cylinder in it. Now this one's mostly stock, but this car will stand right up on the bumper as soon as he gives it gas. This thing's got crazy weight balance. It actually doesn't weigh much of anything. And it puts on a show for a lot of people at the Straight Axle Mafia races, which happen in Kentucky, Indiana, all over the place. Also inside this part of the building is a 1963 Ford two-door sedan. Now it's going to have a pretty high performance engine, and it's got some cheater slicks on the back with chrome steel wheels, but it's not going to be a cut-up race car like some of his other projects. Speaking of cut-up race cars, between Tony's house and his garage, there's an early Ford Thunderbird named the Dirty Bird. Now this car came from the Chicago area. It had a completely custom round tube frame, which Tony said was extremely bent when he got it. Actually, one wheel was actually off the ground. It had a Dana 60 rear end, which was also bent, and you'll see that the paint job on this thing is yellow with black cobwebs all over it. That's a custom paint job from the 1960s. This thing is killer, and it's yet another project that's on Tony's to-do list, but it's sitting outside the shop, so anytime one makes its way outside the shop, you know it's not going to get quite as much attention. Now this car didn't belong to Tony, but he's doing some work on it and storing it for his buddy. This is a 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser Indy 500 pace car. This is an extremely rare car. Only 1,256 of them were built. Not very many of them are surviving. This one is absolutely in wonderful condition, and it was actually ordered without the lettering, which was pretty big and gaudy. But you can see on the back of the car and inside the insignias for the Pace Car Edition. This is extremely rare, and they're going to put this thing back to factory condition. Another cool piece is this vintage dragster trailer. Now this is an enclosed trailer, kind of skinny, kind of short, and this was a thing during the 1960s when people transitioned from flat towing to open trailers to enclosed trailers. They were building them completely custom to pretty much just fit right around the dragster. And this is a pretty cool one here, and Tony plans to use it to haul junior dragsters for his grandkids. Another obscure piece is this trailer, which actually turns into a giant slot car track. Before we go inside, Tony wanted to show us some more stuff out here. He wanted to show us the Foul Play Falcon, which is a car that he remembers watching when he was 7 years old at his local racetrack, Cedar Creek Dragway, and he ended up buying it in 1971 and drove it on the street. But now it spends most of its time on the drag strip. It's got a pretty rowdy little small block Ford in it, and he has tons of fun with this car. Sitting next to his ramp truck and Falcon is the travel trailer that he plans to pull behind the Mercury station wagon. Now, this is a 1947 Indian travel trailer. It's fully restored. This thing is absolutely flawless inside and out. In the garage that's attached to Tony's house, he's got even more toys, including an early Mustang coupe which he built for his daughter. This thing's got a slick orange paint job on it, a pretty rowdy little small block Ford in it, 5-spoke mags. It's a really nice piece. Also in this part of the garage, there's lots of miniature things. We got a little Honda Trail 70 motorcycle, we got a junior dragster, a miniature Jeep, and even a miniature travel trailer that is a replica of the bigger travel trailer that's sitting right outside. So Tony invites me in his house, and he's got pictures on the wall of all sorts of different drag cars that he's owned through the years. And he invites me down in the basement, and as soon as we get down to where we can see, it's all slot cars, vintage slot cars, everywhere you look, stacked on shelves, stacked up in the corner, in factory boxes, all sorts of vintage slot cars. And these things are extremely rare. Some of them I had no idea they were so rare and valuable, but he took the time and explained a lot of these things to me, and there's just some really cool stuff here.
Look over here. Here's see the little red wagon up in the corner there? And this one, the white Nissan, it was never sold in America. It's metric. It's a 1966, and the bolts and nuts are metric. But let's see. And I got, this is the rarest of the Impalas. And And this dark blue is the rarest one I got. The dark blue. Everybody in the country's tried to buy that. And a lot of them ain't been run. And the Batmobile, the monogram is the big bucks ones.
Yeah.
You know, I got this is a monogram, that's a monogram, and this one here I got the box for. Carroll Shelby autographed about, some guys say under 50 boxes in 1966. See there, you can barely see it, Carroll Shelby. Man, I've had that.
The guy ever doing
I've had that for 40 years. Yeah, see, this has a little fan in it, and it blows a metal ball up. So they put the car on there, and then shows you how many RPMs you're doing, you know. So see, and I got the motors, new old stock. I went crazy. And this is a rare being yellow. And there's that 34 Ford box. And these are expensive. I got it up on the thing here, Rat Fink.
I ain't never seen a Henry J slot car. That's neat.
Well, these right here are mostly model bodies. You know?
Okay.
Look here, I got my T-Bird.
Uh-huh.
There's the low horns.
Yeah.
There's Joey in his ponytail.
Yeah.
And there's my old Falcon I used to run. I just build them, but these are all old chassis, you know. And that's the ones I do for the kids at the Camp Quality.
Okay.
See the Wiener car? They all do wheelies. Well, most
Oh,
of
that's
these
cool.
cars here do wheelies.
Willie Poppers.
Wheelie poppers.
Huh.
So anyway, I got the amulets here. I'm working on it. It does a wheelie down. It does a wheelie. Then I turn it on and they tore it up at the last one. So my grandson's, look at this old box I picked up. It was from the 60s. Look at that. Schaefer, B&M, Mickey Thompson. That's pretty cool. Junk everywhere. Don't take a picture of that.
I love it.
Look at here. See the Porsches?
Yeah.
There and there, and I got every company that made them.
Also in his collection of stuff is a really cool vintage flyer from Cedar Creek Dragway, which was his home track. This place ran from 1955 to 1972, and of course when I showed interest in that, Tony said, well, hop in the truck, let's go check it out. Even though there wasn't a whole lot to see because it's all surrounded by corn, it was really cool to drive by this place and check it out and to just think about all those memories that he's made through the years at that place and all the memories and all the crazy drag cars that raced there back in the day. And when we got started talking about old drag strips and old drag cars, he pulled out his scrapbooks and his photo albums, and he's got tons of cool stuff. The coolest thing to me though is when we flipped open that photo album and there was a picture of a Kellison funny car in there, and that is actually a car that my dad and I own now. That car was campaigned by Larry Stewart in the 1960s and 70s. I'm going to do a full documentary on that car. I've got tons and tons of history on it. So look forward to that in a future episode. But as we kept flipping through here, you know, we see some really cool race cars, some cool advertisements for Cedar Creek Dragway, lots of cool stuff in here, lots of history. Other cool stuff outside included this 9-inch Ford rear end housing, which had some giant traction bars welded to it, which is kind of like what they did for the Thunderbolts and the other factory drag cars. And then there's a 40 Ford hood with a cool scoop glassed onto it, an Austin fiberglass front end. And as we make our way through here, we see a Vega shell that's just been gutted out and going to be turned into a drag car. I'm pretty sure that was the only Chevrolet on the property, aside from his buddy's truck that they were working on. So there's no doubt about it, Tony is crazy about old school drag cars, old vintage parts, anything Ford related, anything from the 1960s, he just loves it all. On this episode of Hot Rod Hoarders, we're exploring a never before seen collection of cars and parts that's in a very secluded area in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. This completely hidden collection features a lot of rare cars, including 11 Cosworth twin cam Vegas. There's also lots of cool drag car projects, hot rods, lots of parts, lots of rare stuff. There's so much to cover, so let's get right into it. Now, in the interest of privacy, I don't want to disclose their names or the location of this collection, but I will say that part of the reason this collection exists is because the guy has an eBay store and he sells used car parts. So it's basically like an online junkyard. So he sells parts on eBay. His username on eBay is Vega Guy. He's running this business sort of on the side. He has other jobs and things that he does, but part of the reason he has this collection is so that he can earn a little bit of money. And he does pretty well for himself. So this is a neat collection because it's a good mixture of business and pleasure and projects, and you know, it's just a little bit of everything here. So when I pulled into their driveway, I was just absolutely shocked with how beautiful the scenery was. Their driveway twists and turns and goes up and down these hills and works its way back into this hollow, or holler as we call it around here, and it is just amazing. As I'm making my way down their driveway, I round the corner, and then there I start to see some of the cars that are scattered around, and just I'm really getting excited. Before I even get out of the truck, I'm excited for what I'm about to see. So the first cars we looked at were actually a couple of drag car projects, and of course that's right up my alley because I love old drag cars. And one of them is really wild. This is actually a Hillman. Now these cars are really small. Think of maybe like a Crosley or a Morris Minor, or something that's just tiny. But they made for pretty cool drag cars because they were extremely light, really small. And as we look at this one, it's actually been turned into a center seat drag car. Now this thing has got a custom paint job on it. Even though it's sitting outside here, this thing would still clean up pretty good. Obviously you'd have to put a motor and glass and a whole lot of work to ever get this thing back on the track. But you can see that they've put a lot of work into this thing. And underneath the front of this car, you'll actually notice that it has a straight axle, which is kind of odd when you consider how low this car sits. But looking right here, I mean, it's set up kind of like a street rod as far as the front suspension. You'll see that it has an early Ford cross member and a transverse leaf spring. So this is sort of like 1932 Ford stuff here. And it all worked out really good. It's tucked up under there nice and neat, and it makes this car sit perfect. Sitting next to it underneath this tarp is a Bantam Altered Roadster. Now this car is almost turnkey. There's a lot of good pieces on this car. You can see that the roll cage has recently been redone. It's just kind of in bare metal. It's not been painted. The body and stuff has got shiny paint on it. It's got modern wheels. It's got a small block Chevy in it already. You know, this car, it would need to be cleaned up. It would need to be freshened. It would need some new tires and some new things. But this is very much a functional drag race project. And it's something that's kind of been on the back burner. That's why it's sitting out here and not inside the garage. But this car is definitely on their to-do list somewhere down the road. So I mentioned this guy has a bunch of Chevy Vegas, and the number is around 40. He has about 40 of these little Vegas, all different years, all different, you know, hatchbacks and the coupes and the station wagons, all sorts of different platforms. And he has some really special cars as well. He has 11 Cosworth Vegas, which is a special edition. Not very many of these cars made, and he has kind of hoarded up a bunch of these things, and that's part of his personal projects. And you know, some of them have some parts that he might sell, but most of these Cosworth cars are keepers. These are things that he loves. You know, this was kind of a wild concept that back then, during the mid-1970s, when horsepower was completely erased from all of Chevrolet's lineup, including the Corvette, this little car came out, and it was a pretty special piece. These cars were produced for the 1975 and 76 model years. There was only 3,508 of these cars built, and they all had this very special, hand-built, all aluminum, 122 cubic inch, 4-cylinder engine. They were a little bit exotic because they had twin cams, which is not something that GM, especially Chevrolet, ever really experimented with production cars. Usually everybody's first move with the Vega is to put a V8 in it. But with a Cosworth car, these things had special engines from the get-go. So they were pretty quick, and you could actually tune on these things and change some things around and make even more horsepower with them. So they were really a cool platform to build upon in the 1970s and 1980s. These cars cost nearly $6,000, which was double what a normal Vega would cost you, and just a little bit less than what a brand new Corvette would cost back in 1975 and 1976. So these cars were a bit exotic, and they didn't sell all that well, which I don't think the intention was to, make a mass-produced car. This was a limited edition car, and at the end of the 2-year run, just a little over 3,500 of them were built. This particular car that we're looking at right now is actually the guy's very first car when he was 16 years old. He had this Cosworth Vega. This thing is still in pretty good shape, even though it's been sitting outside for a while. But again, this is a keeper. This is a car that means a lot to him. It's something that somewhere down the road he wants to put back together just like he had it in high school and, just relive those days. One of the slickest cars in their collection is this early Dodge Charger. Now it's got a pretty fresh paint job on it, and they're going to continue buttoning this thing up and getting it ready to put out on the market for sale. It's more than likely something that they'll sell when springtime comes around and people are wanting to get out and about. But for now, they're going to keep chipping away at this thing and make it as nice as possible for the next guy down the line. Now here's another cool car with a little bit of drag racing history. This is a 1968 Chevrolet Camaro, and you'll see as we make our way around here that it's got a fiberglass or maybe even plastic rectangular hood scoop on it. It's got a few little race car details, but you can see that it's not been completely cut up. It doesn't have a roll cage in it. It doesn't have a super narrow rear end with big wheel tubs, but it has a really cool 70s or 80s look. It's got those centerline wheels and that square hood scoop. Somebody's took the front bumper off of it and filled in some of those holes. It is a really neat looking car that's got a lot of potential. As we make our way inside the shop, we see lots of parts, several project cars, and just a lot of equipment, a lot of tools and things to use on this endless list of projects and endless list of ideas that they have on these cars. And as we walk in here, we see another Hillman. This time, this car has a complete tube chassis underneath it. You can see it really well because there's no floor pans in it, but an extremely narrow rear end and narrow frame section, giant Mickey Thompson tires tucked under the back of it. This thing is really cool. It sits right down on the ground, and it's going to make a super cool project, but obviously it has a long ways to go before it's ready for the road. Another cool car in the shop is this little Nissan or Datsun, and it's set up for a small block Chevy, but if you look in the engine bay, I mean, this thing is absolutely slick. They've spent a bunch of time welding up all the holes and making this firewall slick and the inner fenders slick, and the outside of the car is slick too. And it's just about ready for another coat of paint. They had painted it and then had to fix a few things, but this is going to make a really slick car. Small block Chevy, nothing real elaborate or crazy, but it'll make a very fun street car. As we turn around from looking at those project cars, we see tons of engine parts. Complete engines sitting on stands, partial engines, engine blocks, cylinder heads, crankshafts, all sorts of stuff stashed away here. And there's also a lot of equipment here. They actually bought out a machine shop, so they have all sorts of grinding tools and all sorts of stuff stashed away here. Plenty of things to where they can work completely on their own. They can just stay right here in the holler, build their own engines, do their own body work, build their own chassis. They can do it all right here. So as I made my way around the shop, I didn't even notice this car at first until he pointed it out to me, that they've got a dragster that's just stuffed kind of back in the back corner of their shop. And this is a very modern car, lots of good pieces on it, and it's fortunate that it's sitting under a roof. It's sitting here, waiting for them to get enough time to work on it, or they might trade around on it. They might trade their way into another project or something. It's just another piece to their puzzle in this giant collection. So as we made our way upstairs in the garage, we see a giant collection of parts. Tons and tons and tons of parts here. Chevrolet parts and Ford parts and just a little bit of everything up here. There's body panels, there's trim pieces, wheels, tires, all sorts of stuff that's stashed away. And you can see over here in this corner where he's built some shelves. He's got totes in here that are just packed full, and these things are labeled. This is stuff that he uses to sell on eBay, so he goes through the process of labeling and inventorying all of this stuff when he parts out some of these cars. So as we see right here, this collection is huge. He has thousands and thousands of parts put away for safekeeping inside the garage, and it's stuff that he can easily get to. He can pull it out and ship it to his customers around the world. I like this particular stack. There's tons of old school valve covers. I see some gold Moroso valve covers in there, an Edelbrock tunnel ram, lots of cool parts on that shelf. And you can just see everywhere you look in here is just tons of cool stuff. There are parts and pieces for anything you can imagine stashed away in this garage. I love these old slicks, the tires, the wheels, the headers hanging on the wall. You know, there's just a little bit of everything in here. And every time you turn around, it's just like you see something else that catches your eye. You know, like these huge Mickey Thompson Sportsman tires that you'd put under the back of a pro street car. All sorts of great stuff in here. As we make our way back out of the shop and onto the property, we see tons more wheels. We got some Weld wheels, some Cosworth Vega wheels. I see a Champ 500. I see some American Racing Vector wheels, some old slicks. And one of my favorite things was this Anglia one-piece fiberglass front end. It's just kind of hanging out up here, but it looks like it's in very good usable condition. And here's another Cosworth Vega. Now this one is mostly complete, but it's a little bit rough. Somebody has actually painted this car and straightened it up, but you can see everywhere there's rust bubbles popping up. This car more than likely came from up north and had been patched up with Bondo and, you know, just filled in the rust and painted right over the top of it. But it's still a Cosworth Vega, so it's still a pretty cool piece. There's still a lot of good pieces on it. This third gen Camaro looked a little bit rough, but these cars are really coming on strong. That thing could be cleaned up and brought back to life with no problem. This 57 Chevy is one of several Tri-5 Chevys that this guy's bought in recent months. And the whole purpose of buying these things is to strip them down and use them for parts. Most of them have been sitting for lots of years. They're rusty. This particular car is wrecked. It's a 210 two-door sedan, so it actually is a pretty desirable car, especially for a hot rodder, but it's pretty rough. It's beat up, it's rough. There's not many parts still attached to it, but you can bet that there's plenty of stuff that he can strip off of here and sell on the internet. As we make our way a little further back, there's a Chevy Monza drag car. Now, I love old drag cars. This thing is bound to have some cool history, but he didn't know much about it. But you can see that it obviously has a very narrow rear end. The little roll-around tires on it are not appropriate for what it would have had. You know, it would have had probably a 16 or 17-inch wide tire under the back of this car. But it's still a really cool piece. You know, there's a lot of potential with this particular car. You could actually put a motor in this thing and make it functional again. But for now, it's just a project that's sitting there waiting its turn. There's also a really cool little Rambler, a little two-door sedan. It appears to be maybe an early 60s. I don't know my Ramblers all that well, but I know they kind of went from being a real round bathtub shape to sort of this little more notchy shape in the 1960s. So my guess is maybe 61, 2, 3, something like that. Maybe leave me a comment below if you know the year of it. I'm not really sure about it. Another big source of parts for the eBay store is this lineup of Ford Falcons. Now these cars are not potential projects. They're not something that they plan to build. These are strictly business. These are cars that they're taking apart and putting the parts online and selling them to people who need those hard to find parts. And here's yet another Cosworth twin cam Vega. This one looks like the nicest one out of the whole group. It's still got all of its factory black and gold accents. It's got the original gold wheels. It's got the old Goodyear Eagle ST raised white letter tires. This thing is pretty much complete. This car's got just weathered paint. You know, it would clean up pretty good, but you can just see that this is an all original car. This thing has not been messed with very much. And as we look under the hood, we see that very special Cosworth twin cam engine, and somebody's actually switched this thing over from fuel injection to Weber carburetors. And you can see that header on there. And as we look on the inside, you can see the custom steering wheel. You can see the gold engine turn dash panel. And we can even see that dash plaque with the commemorative number. Moving on, we've got another really cool street strip project. This one's a Ford Mustang Fastback, and you can see that it's mini tubbed in the back. It's got some drag racing wheels on it. And this is actually a pretty solid car. You know, it's very buildable. It needs some work. It definitely needs some metal work. It needs obviously a lot of finish work to be done, but there's a lot of potential here. A few months ago, this guy bought out an entire Pontiac guy's collection. So he had collected all sorts of body panels, wheels, just everything you can think of for vintage Pontiacs, a lot of GTO parts, just an incredible collection that he was able to go buy it and haul it all home, and now that gives him just basically a lifetime supply of things to sell on eBay. So he can methodically inventory all of these pieces, which luckily this guy was pretty particular that he bought it from. He had already gone through and labeled a lot of the things, so he can really do well and make a lot of money off of these parts. One of their most recent purchases is a group of 1962 through 1964 Chevrolet Impalas. He went down to Georgia and bought several of these cars from the same owner, and they've been sitting in the woods for years, and they're absolutely rotten as far as the sheet metal goes, but there's tons of great trim on them. There's so many pieces that you can't get from the parts store, and you can't get from the suppliers that make reproduction parts either. So, you know, these cars will, once again, serve him very well with his eBay business. This particular car is a 62 Chevrolet four-door sedan, and as we look around, I mean, it's pretty rough. There's a lot of rust here, but it's still got trim, it's still got glass, it's still got a lot of pieces here that could be used on a project car. And if we look under the hood, you can see in there that it had a V8 in it, more than likely just a run-of-the-mill 283, but still, there's parts, there's pieces, and you know, you look inside, there's still some stuff in here. There's door handles, window cranks, dash trim, gauges, all that stuff still survives on this car. Now this is a really cool hot rod project. This is a 46 through about 48 Ford, and somebody has chopped the top on this car, and they did a pretty decent job. You can see it's got a lot of Bondo in it. Some of that's coming back out of it, but you know, compared to some of these things, you know, chopping the top on a car is an easy way to butcher up something. So anyways, this car is pretty good. They've shaved the drip rail off of it. You can see that there's plenty of room for big tires on the back. This was going to be somebody's Pro Street hot rod project back in the 80s or 90s probably, but it's still surviving out here today. Even though it's sitting outside, still a pretty cool piece. Sitting next to it is a little Chevy Nova, a little four-door car. And this thing is not anything real special. It's just a 1965, probably a kind of a mid-level trim. Nothing special, not a super sport, not a V8 car, I'm sure. But still a really neat piece. Something somebody could drag out of these weeds and get back on the road again. Sitting next to it is a Chevrolet Monza. And this one has got some pretty cool features on it. I see it's got some red stripes that go on the hatch and across the roof, and that kind of makes me think about that old school Mirage Special Edition. And as we get a little bit closer, you can actually see the remnants of a spoiler on the back and those wide body panels that they put onto the quarter panels. So this is either one of the 4097 Monza Mirages, or it could be one of the dealer installed Mirage packages, which was pretty common back in the day. Over here in the weeds, we've got a Chevrolet Corvair. We've got a 57 Chevrolet two-door hardtop, which looks like it still has some pretty good parts intact. And then there's another Chevrolet Monza. You can't see a whole lot about it, but you can see that it's still pretty much all hanging together. Now this is cool. This is another Hillman. This one's painted up like a little police car, and these things you gotta really see them to believe how tiny they are. So seeing it painted up like a police car is kind of funny. But these guys went a long ways to go get this car. It's another potential project somewhere down the road. Sitting next to it is a little Triumph sports car. Now most of the Triumphs that I'm familiar with are like roadsters, sort of like a little MG or something like that. But this one's got a cool slope, like a fastback style roof with a hatchback. And its next door neighbor is a 57 Chevrolet Bel Air four-door hardtop. Now these cars are getting to be pretty hard to find, and especially hard to find parts for, because these cars were pretty special. You know, the windows, the doors, everything about these cars was different than your standard four-door, and obviously different than your standard two-door. So the trim pieces, there are so many specific parts that are on these four-door hardtop cars, and this one is full of great parts. And it's actually got some pretty good pieces as far as the body is concerned. You know, this thing's not completely rotted to the ground yet. Next, we've got a little Opel GT, and I love these cars. They make really good drag cars because they're lightweight, they're super small, and they kind of look like a little Corvette. And this one is kind of rough. I mean, it's definitely rusty. It's been wrecked. There's not a whole lot there, but it's still fun to look at. And then over here in the weeds, we've got a Mercury Capri. This is a Fox body car, very similar to a Mustang, but it's got that weird hatch. And then further in the weeds, it's kind of hard to see, but we've got a few other cars. We've got another Opel GT, and you know, as we pan around here, we see that the sticks have just sort of fallen on this car. This is a pretty rare station wagon. This appears to be like a mid-50s, maybe 56, 57 Dodge. It's kind of hard to tell because I can't really get around to it, but definitely a distinct design on this body, and those tail lights are really cool. And then the next car we see is another old school Impala. This one is wrecked and rotten. There's not a whole lot of body panels that are usable on this car, but it does have a lot of trim, and if you notice, it's got some old school Krager SS wheels on it. And another little thing to notice is that it's got Super Sport trim. This car's got the little engine turned inserts inside the trim that tells you that it was a Super Sport car from the factory. So even though this trim is bent up and beat up, there's still some usable pieces here and there on this car. Here's a couple more Impalas sitting here in the weeds. It's kind of hard to tell much about them. You know, they're kind of taken apart. There's not a whole lot of parts here, but still some usable pieces, lots of windshield trim, lots of other trim, lots of pieces that somebody could use if they were building one of these cars. As I'm walking around, I like seeing the old license plates because it gives you an idea of how long these cars have been sitting. And this one's really cool to me because I just, out of curiosity, looked at this one, and it was April of 1989, and then I noticed it was from Ray County, which is where I live. So pretty cool to see this big old Cadillac Coupe de Ville, and you know, it's pretty rough. It's been taken apart. There's not a whole lot here as far as a good buildable project, but still pretty fun to look at. While I was there, I got to pay a quick visit to my old car. I sold them this car a few months ago, and it kind of is what spawned this idea to go over here and check out their collection. As we move into this section, there's several different types of cars here. We start with a 60s Plymouth, and then we move into some different 70s and 80s sports cars, just a little bit of everything in this section of cars. And one thing that really jumped out at me, even though there's lots of cool stuff here, this thing was probably one of my favorites. It's a 1962 Chevrolet Impala, and the really interesting part of this car is that it's mostly fiberglass. The roof and the quarter panels are steel, but the doors, fenders, hood, bumpers, deck lid, all of that is fiberglass. So this by itself, you know, the car itself's not all that rare, but those panels have got to be super rare because there's just not that many 62 Impala drag cars that would use, you know, really thin race weight fiberglass. So walking around this thing is pretty cool. It's definitely a cool piece. It's something that you don't see every day. And as we look inside of here, this car does have a roll cage in it. Somebody had intentions of building a pretty cool drag car or maybe a pro street car. But as we look right here, there's no floor pan in the back, and it gives you a good view of that original X frame. It's got the original coil springs on the back. You know, this car doesn't have big giant tires up under the back of it, which is kind of strange when you look at all of this really exotic stuff like these fiberglass panels. But once again, one of my favorite cars here just because it's so unique, so cool. It's definitely somebody's vintage creation, and hopefully someday it'll get put back together. Sitting next to that mostly fiberglass Impala is another car that could be a killer drag car project. This is a Prefect, which is sort of the four-door version of an Anglia. It's very similar body design, but it's got a little bit different front end. And as you can see, this thing has emblems on it. It's still got trim, still got a grille, headlight rings, all that stuff's still there. And one very interesting thing I saw are these two big holes in the hood. I'm wondering what that was for because the rest of this car does not look like it was a drag car or anything like that. But stuff like that just always gets my interest. If I see something that doesn't quite look original, it definitely makes me think. Sitting next to the little English Ford is a Chevy Vega station wagon, and up over the roof of it you can see this view of lots of Chevy Vegas, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But first we got to make our way around to that. And we'll see a few more little Triumph sports cars, a little TR7, lots of different diverse projects here in this collection. We got another Vega, another Monza, you know, just a little bit of everything here. And then we've got a roof off of a station wagon. I'm not sure what that came off of. Kind of looks like a Corvair, I'm not sure. And then a fiberglass 55 Chevy front end. Another car that really jumped out at me was this little 55 Chevy station wagon. Now this thing has been shortened. I'm guessing it was originally a 4-door car that they've shortened down into 2 doors. And it's kind of goofy as far as the proportions go, but you can tell this was somebody's hot rod. They've cut out the rear wheel wells, the back tires are sticking out a little bit. You know, I'd love to know a little bit of history on this thing because it's just super cool to look at. And you gotta love that little roof rack that's on the top of this shortened station wagon. Also back here we see several more Monzas and Vegas. Some of them are original, some of them are V8 cars, some of them are street strip cars. You know, it's just a big variety, but most of these cars are parts cars. There's not a whole lot of cars here that have potential as a future project. Another one that jumped out at me was this little dirt track car. Most of these cars just got thrown away. They got scrapped because they were just so rough by the time they were done with them. But this little Chevy Vega dirt track car survives. And according to the owner, this thing came from the Murphy, North Carolina area. And obviously it's got some history. Probably back in the 80s, this thing was running at local tracks. Who knows? It more than likely had a 4-cylinder, but could have had a V8. Could have run in one of the hobby or sportsman classes back in the day. But still a really neat piece. Now these two kind of stand out from the crowd. These two Nash Metropolitans, again, very small, very compact cars, which seems to be a theme with this collection. But definitely an interesting car. There's not a whole lot left of either of these two cars, not even very many usable parts. So they're just kind of yard art at this point. As we make our way back into the Vega collection, it's really crazy the different types of cars that he's got stashed away back here. Some of them are just 100% original, some of them are super rough, some of them are wrecked. It's just a big variety of different Vegas. He's got a few Monzas thrown in the mix too, but as we walk back through here, it's just rows of Vegas. And according to his count, he's got about 40 of these cars. So he's got projects, he's got parts cars, and he's just an all-around hoarder when it comes to these GM H-body cars. And there's just piles of parts here, bumpers, fenders, doors, and I love this station wagon here. This looks like a GM A-body car. Not real sure what it is because it's just all stripped out, but tons of different types of vehicles in here. Some full-size, some mid-size, some compact cars, just a lot of cool stuff. And a lot of Chevrolets. Admittedly, you know, I'm a Chevrolet guy, so seeing all this stuff does hurt your heart a little bit when you see how rough some of it is, but it's important to remember that these cars are serving a purpose. They are helping guys like me and like you and like a lot of guys around the world who are building these cars, and they need the parts. And they can't just call up Summit or Jegs or whoever and order, you know, these very specific pieces. So this guy is helping a lot of people put their dream cars together by collecting all of these junky cars and putting them over here in the weeds. Here's another cool one, a 1962 Chevrolet station wagon. It's been stripped out pretty well, but still what's left of it is pretty cool. And then as we make our way across some of these parts and pieces, we find another Chevy Monza Mirage. Now again, the fender flares or wide body, whatever you want to call it, has been taken off, but you can see the stripes are still there. And you can see down here on the doors, it's still got the decals down here that say Monza Mirage. So this is a pretty cool piece, just about 4,000 of these cars built, and it looks like he's got 2 of them here. So, you know, it looks like they've been stripped out. There's been a lot of parts used off of these cars, but still really neat to just kind of stumble across 2 of these things in this collection. This 64 Chevy 4-door has seen better days, but it's still got lots of parts on it. As we make our way around, there's another 62 Chevrolet 4-door. This one's kind of sinking down into the ground a little bit, but once again, got lots of parts. And you can see this one, that's either a Biscayne or a Bel Air because there's not very many trim pieces on it. And as we make our way back here, we can see just parts and pieces everywhere. Frame sections, a truck bed. I don't know what all this stuff is, but there's just so much. It was kind of overwhelming to really get a grasp of what all was here. But as I made my way back into the mix, into this mixture of cars, I spotted two more Cosworth Vegas. One of them was black, which is pretty standard. All of the early cars were painted black. And then the 1976 cars, there was actually some different color options. So one of those colors was called antique white. So that's one we're looking at right here, is the antique white Cosworth twin cam Vega. This would make it a 1976 model. Another really rare piece. They also had this cool little Volvo, which these cars make great little hot rods. And as I made my way past this car, I noticed a 62 Impala, but it was not accessible. You can see right here that the bridge or the tile had washed away, leaving it kind of stranded over here on an island. But you know, I couldn't get a real close look at it, but still pretty neat car. Just unfortunate that it's not very accessible at the moment. Here's another car from their most recent purchase. It's a 64 Chevrolet four-door sedan. And you know, it's rough, it's rusty, but you see those bumpers, you see the grille, you see the headlight bezels, all that trim and all that stuff. That's gold for a guy who's going to junk these things out and sell those parts. Here's another little Vega sitting out here, sitting next to a couple of Chevy Chevettes. Now, you don't see these cars very often anymore. I think most of them got scrapped. So again, rare parts. If somebody was going to build a Chevette, where are you going to get parts for that? And that's where this guy comes into play. Along with their big shop, they've also got a couple of other buildings, and they've got them packed full of parts. In this particular building, you can see there's a lot of old Coke bottles and things like that, but lining the walls, there's a bunch of Chevy Vega engines, tons of different engines there. And then in the back of this little section, there is a Chevy 409. And this is like the epitome of Chevrolet engines from the 1960s, especially the early 60s. And you know, considering their interest in 62 through 64 Chevrolets, this 409 is kind of like the cream of the crop when it comes to their collection. And they're definitely planning on building a car around this engine someday. It is one of their favorite pieces out of all the parts, all the cars that they've got. This has been a really cool experience to see what they've accumulated over the years. And it's 3 generations of car guys just buying stuff every chance they get. They're using all their money, all their time to collect these cars. And the cool thing about it is they're turning it back into money, and they're helping fellow car guys get their cars put back together by selling them used parts at an affordable price and just kind of keeping this cycle going. So yes, of course, these cars are sitting outside. Yes, they're getting rusty. Yes, they're sitting here, but they all have a purpose. So this is a really cool collection. I enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed spending time talking to them. I enjoyed looking at their collection, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. Thank you for watching. On this episode of Hot Rod Hoarders, we discover a huge collection of muscle cars, classic trucks, and drag cars, all scattered across a big piece of property in East Tennessee. This collection belongs to Matt Klein, and it really shows his lifelong obsession with cars. Matt has done a great job of involving his son, Layden, in his hobby, and he's gotten really involved in it here lately. He's bought a lot of great projects, including a car you'll see here in a little while, a 1964 Galaxy. They spent a lot of time gathering parts, buying parts cars, buying pieces, and dreaming about some of these project cars, because believe me, there's enough here for a lifetime supply of project cars. And it really makes me feel good to see a father and son enjoy the same hobby together. That means that Matt's passion for these old cars is going to get passed down to the next generation, and hopefully so on down the line. Right as we pulled into Matt's property, that's where we started seeing some cars, and that's where I wanted to start this exploration of his place. And right here, the very first couple of cars that you see are a couple of 69 and 70 Mustangs. Now, you'll see that he really likes these cars. He's got quite a few of them in his collection. And these two are simply parts cars that he had bought for various projects. But you'll notice that one of these cars is actually an old drag car. And from what he was telling me, he bought it basically just for the roof skin, that the rest of the car didn't mean that much to him, that it was somebody else's project that never really got completed. You can see here that the car is not 100% complete. It does have a full frame under it. It's got a roll cage in it. It's got big wheel tubs on the back. It was set up for a narrowed rear end and big tires. And, it was a pretty good looking piece as far as the fabrication involved. But there's not a lot left of it as far as usable drag car pieces. So it's been sitting here for quite a while, as you can tell by the weeds and everything. And he does intend on using the roof on another project that you'll see here in just a little bit. Next is a great lineup of 1960s Fords. We got a Galaxy 500. We got a 64 Fairlane with flaky paint. Obviously somebody didn't do a great job of prepping because all this paint's coming off of it. But it does have some pretty cool wheels on it. Those are Vintage Wheelworks V48 wheels. And then further back behind it is another Galaxy, and then at the end of this line is a Galaxy XL, which is pretty cool to me because it's got some old school chrome aftermarket wheels and some pretty big fat tires on it all the way around. And it's got 390 badges on it. I don't really know if this was a factory big block car or not, but still a pretty cool piece. As I made my way around the property, I noticed Matt had a pretty big collection of American Racing Vector wheels, which is the same type of wheel that was on the General Lee Charger from the Dukes of Hazzard. And this is a popular wheel for the 1970s. Basically any kind of 70s street machine would look cool with a set of these wheels. So he's been buying them up for years. You'll also notice that he's got a stash of engines and parts and pieces laid all over here. He's got Ford, Chevrolet, and Mopar, just a little bit of everything out here. Next is a lineup of Ford Pintos. Now, it's not very often that you see these things on the road anymore, and it's certainly not very common to see 7 of them sitting in a row. And Matt has plans for a couple of these cars. Some of them are simply parts cars, but he does have a plan for this one on the end, this bright orange car. It's got weld wheels on it. He wants to put a 351 with tunnel ram and 2 4s, and he's actually talking about switching it over from the big bumper over to the small bumper design, which was earlier in the 70s. And he happens to have a small bumper car sitting there that might be a good donor car for his build. In this lineup, there's wrecked cars, there's rusty cars, there's all sorts of different Pintos here, including a really cool Pinto station wagon with that simulated wood trim on the side. This next lineup starts with a few Torinos, and actually one of these cars looks like a Torino, but it's not. This is a 1970 and a half Ford Falcon. And I didn't know this, but Matt was explaining to me that the first part of 1970, the Ford Falcon was a standard compact car, just like all the other Falcons. But midway through the year, they transitioned over into the Torino and Fairlane body style and rebadged it as a Falcon. And I'm not really sure why that happened, but it created a really exclusive low production run car that was only made for half a year. Obviously, this car has been worked over at some point in its life because the paint that's remaining is still pretty shiny. But you can see that the clear coat is peeling off, and that's a dead giveaway that this car's been painted, because years ago they didn't use clear coat. So, when you see this type of flaking, you know that this car's been painted probably in the 90s or later. The third car in this lineup is an earlier Ford Torino. This one is a GT package. This thing is really complete. All the insides look really great, and it's still got that stripe on there. It's faded, but you can still see it a little bit. I love the patina on this car. Sitting next to it is a 1966 Ford Falcon, and this is another abandoned drag car project. You can see there's a roll cage in there, and a little bit closer look on the inside shows that the subframe's been tied together. This car was going to be back halved, it was going to be made into a drag car, but somewhere along the way the project kind of faded and Matt stepped in and bought it basically as a parts car. Now this is a really cool one. This is a 1970 Ford Mustang Fastback, and at some point in its life, probably in the 80s or 90s, this thing was killer. It was bright red, it had well drag light wheels on it, big and littles, and under the hood this is a big block car. This thing's got a 429, tons of engine work on it, and you can see when we're looking in here, in order to fit those big block Fords into these cars, you had to do quite a bit of cutting and reworking on the shock towers. And this car's been completely reworked so that that big block fits in there. It's got a motor plate. This thing is ready for some pretty serious action. And you can see it's got a Edelbrock aluminum intake on it, a Holley 4-barrel carburetor. This thing probably ran really good back in the day. But for now, it's just kind of another one of his long-term projects that have been sitting here for a little while, but it's got a lot of potential. A lot of people fall in love with their first car, and Matt's no different. He had a late 70s Ford Thunderbird, and he loves this body style because it was his first car. He made a lot of memories in that car, and he's been hoarding up these things for years. He's got several of them sitting here. A lot of different packages, a lot of different engine options were available during that time, and he plans on putting together one of these cars to kind of replicate what he had back in high school. As we came around the corner, I spotted a few Chevrolet projects. The first one I saw was a 1966 Chevrolet El Camino. Now, this thing is pretty crusty and rusty. It's got an old school set of Kragers on the front of it, and you know, there's a lot of good parts here. This is a car that you could either build, or you could part this thing out and get some of those hard to find parts that you can't just order out of a catalog. I'm liking this early 60s Chevy too. This is a two-door sedan. You don't see these cars pop up very often, but they made really good race cars back in the day. This one's a little bit rusty, but it's got some potential. Another cool Chevy is this 1961 Chevrolet Bel Air two-door sedan. Now these cars are getting to be pretty hard to find, and he actually found this one. It had a big block in it, and he actually robbed that engine to go in another project that we'll see here in just a little bit. And while we were on the subject of big blocks, he wanted to show me this 1966 Malibu that's been sitting in the woods for years. But this was a factory big block car. Even though it's all taken apart and everything, this car's got a ton of potential. He's got it lifted up off the ground a little bit to kind of try to preserve that metal, and it's still pretty solid, and there's lots of good trim pieces on this car. But, you know, obviously this is going to be a big project someday. Another car that was tucked away in the woods was a 1955 Chevrolet, and you're just going to have to trust me on this one. There is a 55 Chevrolet in those woods. In this little section, we've got a piece of a 1973 Camaro. It's been taken apart, the front clip's off of it. And then there is a late model Mustang that's sitting on a Ford truck frame. It's got these huge mud tires on it. Pretty wild looking piece. And then there's a second generation Pontiac Trans Am. This is a big block 4-speed car, a pretty desirable project for a lot of people. As we make our way through, we see more Mustang Fastbacks scattered around. This one is a 71 to 73 model car. And then we see a 6970 car, and a closer look at that deck lid, it shows a factory Mach 1 paint on it. And you can see where somebody cut out a little spot of rust on this deck lid, which back in the 70s and 80s, if a car had that amount of rust, it was junk. There wasn't anything you'd want to do with it besides make a race car out of it or trash it or use it as a parts car. So that's kind of where Matt took advantage of some of those deals while these cars were still pretty cheap. The next section of cars has an Opel GT, which this thing is all stock. It is rough as it can be, but it would make a really great drag car project. Sitting next to it is an early Chevy 2 station wagon, and this car is surprisingly solid. I would imagine that the floors and trunk pan area has got a little bit of rust, but the outside of this car looks really good. All the glass is intact, and if we go around the back of it, the tailgate is in great shape. This car's got some good trim with it. This car is a very, very buildable car. Moving along, we see a 1964 Chevrolet Impala Super Sport. Now this car's just got a few of its original trim pieces left on the outside, but as we look inside, we see the original bucket seats, we see an original 4-speed console just sitting there, you know, right there out in the open. And there's still some really great pieces to this car. It's rusty on the outside. I'm sure the frame's got rust in it. There's no motor or transmission, but this is a great example of a really nice parts car. Sitting next to it is a 1960 Chevrolet Biscayne. Now, this is Chevrolet's most basic model for 1960. stripped down, not very much trim, not a lot of fancy options, but still a really cool looking car. The oldest cars in Matt's collection are these 1940s Fords. The one that's more complete is a 1941 Coupe, and the other one is also from the 1940s, but I can't really tell much about it because it doesn't have a front end on it. And this one has been modified for a different engine. You can see that the firewall has been recessed. You can also see these front engine mounts up here, and that's more than likely set up for a small block Chevy. He has tons of other Ford projects. He's got some from the 1950s, some from the 1960s, some two-door, some four-door, just a little bit of everything on this row of cars down through here. As you'll see, Matt has a thing for vintage trucks. He has a little bit of everything here. He's got trucks from the 1940s all the way up into the 1980s. Ford, Chevrolet, he's not real picky about that, but he does seem to gravitate toward this 1970s Ford body style, which a lot of people referred to as the dent side. There was bump side from the late 60s into the early 70s, and then the dent side trucks, which was 73 to about 79, was this body style. And he's got a ton of them. He's got regular cab, short wheelbase trucks. He's got long wheelbase trucks, extended cab, crew cab. He's got a little bit of everything. He bought these things while they were cheap, and he knows that they just continue to climb in value. As we can see right now, these trucks are getting really hot. So, if he decides to turn loose of some of these projects, he's going to be able to make a few dollars on his investment. There were a couple of trucks that really stood out to me. One was this 1960s Ford crew cab, which these things were ordered specifically for the government and for railroad use. And this one is really nice. This thing could be built into a killer half-ton conversion. This is originally a 3/4 ton truck, but you could either do the 3/4 ton restoration or you could slam this thing on the ground with some big wheels. The options are endless on this truck. Another one that really got my attention is another 4-door truck. This one has a short bed, 2 tanks. This got some pretty rare options for the 1970s. And you'll see that it's got tons of cool pinstriping, and it's even got hand lettering on the door that says Hamby Racing. And as it turns out, these are some pretty well-known dirt track racers from this area. After I finished up the tour of the vintage trucks, I found a couple of Camaros here. This one is a really rough parts car, and there's not a whole lot of parts left to it, but I like seeing these cars anyways. No matter how rough they are, a first-generation Camaro always gets my attention. In this one, I just wanted to take a quick look at the cowl tag just to see what kind of options it had. I'm always interested in that kind of stuff. And by looking here, it shows that it's a 1967 Camaro. The 760 means the black standard bucket seats. It also has a marina blue paint code, and it shows that it had a 3-speed transmission. The other Camaro, another 1967, is a very complete car, but it's pretty rough. When you look close to it, this thing has got some pretty major paint and body issues, lots of flaking, lots of the Bondo is turning loose on this car, so it would need to be stripped down and redone, but it's pretty much complete. It's got an engine in it, 4-speed transmission, interior is all together. This is a pretty nice project car that's just waiting on Matt to have enough time to fool with it. Moving further back into the property, there's quite a few Mopars stuffed back in here. He's got a 1960 Plymouth Fury, 2-door hardtop. This is a mostly complete car. Sitting next to it is a Plymouth from a little later in the 1960s, another 2-door hardtop. And then back in the weeds here are 4 1968 through 1970 Dodge Chargers. Some of them are just parts cars, some of them are actual buildable projects, but he's had these things stashed away for years. And he's also got a couple of mid-50 Chevrolet pickups here that make a really cool project someday. For these next few cars, we had to go up on the hill to another section of the property where he's got more cars stashed away, and we got started with this 1963 Ford Galaxy XL. This is a pretty rare car because it's a 4-door car that came from the factory with bucket seats and a console. Another cool Chevy is this early 70s Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Now, this car was bought locally. It's been in the same county its whole life. It's had a paint job. It's had some work done here and there, but for the most part, this thing is original. Just a small block, no fancy options or anything like that, but just a really nice, solid old car that you could probably get in and drive today. In this same section is another 1968 through 1970 Dodge Charger. Now, this one's been hit pretty hard in the passenger side door, and it's got some pieces missing on the front end, but it's still got some pretty good potential. Sitting next to it is a Ford Maverick, and this one is kind of a hot rod. You can see it's got a tack and a shift light, and he was telling me that it had a 351 Cleveland in it that was absolutely an animal. Matt took me inside his garage to show me a couple of other projects. One is another 1968 to 70 Dodge Charger. This one's took apart pretty far. A lot of work to be done here, a lot of rust repair and stuff like that, but it's definitely one of the projects that's pretty high on their list. And then there's a 1955 Chevrolet 210 two-door post, and this was somebody's hot rod back in the day, and he wanted to show me specifically some hand lettering that was on the trunk lid of this car. And he opened up the garage door so I could get a good clear view of what was lettered on the trunk lid of this car. It says, "Old Chevys never die." And it has a small heart that says John and Anita 1982. And I can only hope that these two are still together. This old 55 is looking a little rough these days, but it's definitely still surviving, still out there, just like the lettering says, "Old Chevys never die." Matt has big plans for this car. He's got a big block Chevrolet sitting on a stand right next to it. That's actually the engine that he robbed out of the 61 Chevrolet that's down in the field. That's going to make a really good engine combination for this car. He's got big plans to move the leaf springs inboard. He's got to replace some floor pans and trunk pans on this car, even though the outside of the body's still pretty good. He's got a little bit of metal work to do to make this thing solid again. Moving back outside, we go to my absolute favorite car in the whole collection. This is a 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2. This thing, it's pretty rare to begin with, but what I like about it is that it's an old school race car. This thing was home built. It's got a lot of crazy details, including a straight axle under the front. It's got a fiberglass front end on it. It's got a fiberglass hood with a big Pro Stock scoop. It's got Krager Super Trick wheels, big tires tucked up under the back of it. And you'll see underneath the back, it's got leaf spring suspension, a narrowed 9-inch Ford, and some wheelie bars. And from what I've been told, this thing used those wheelie bars pretty heavily.
This was a tunnel ram 2.4 barrel
Yeah.
setup with a Doug Nash 5-speed. It left the line at whatever it turned, and usually it was over 10,000 RPM. Because it's a 289 cubic inch motor.
This lineup of coupe Mustangs brings us to our next abandoned project car. This is an old school drag car. It's got big tires under the back, weld drag light wheels. And when we look inside, we see some drag car stuff. It doesn't have a full roll cage or anything like that, but it has been gutted out. It's just got one seat. It's got a custom steering wheel. It's got switches and gauges and a custom shifter. This is definitely drag car material for the 80s or 90s. The next car is a 1968 Ford Mustang GT Fastback. Now, this was a factory 390 4-speed car, and it does have a little bit of drag racing history. Even though this car didn't get cut up into, having big tires or a roll cage, it does have some drag racing history. A guy had it in 10 Mile, Tennessee, and it actually came out of the same yard that the Ford Pinto that I bought about a year ago. It came out of the same yard as that car. So if you haven't seen that Pinto video, I encourage you to go check that out. So he has plans to go back with an original setup on this car. He's going to put a 390, a 4-speed, a track lock rear end. He's got big plans for this one. Sitting next to it is a 1969 Mustang Fastback. This is Matt's wife's car. It's got weld drag lights on it, and this is a factory Mach 1 car. It does have a few bodywork issues, but it's a real solid survivor. And here we've got another drag car project. This is a 1969 Mustang Fastback, and this is a pretty serious car. This has got a full frame. This has got a full roll cage. It's got fiberglass doors, fiberglass front end. This is a serious piece, and he's planning on putting a big block Ford with twin turbos in this car somewhere down the road, and it's got all the right pieces to be able to support big time horsepower. And it's all just a matter of straightening up that old fiberglass, getting this thing to where it looks good again, and getting a really solid engine and transmission combination put into it. Now, this old 69 Mustang Coupe looks a little bit rough. It's got some rust, it's got some suspension issues, but this was somebody's hot rod back in the day. It's got centerline wheels on it. It's got a little bit of custom paint here and there. This is a pretty cool piece, even though it's really rough. Now, here's another old school hot rod. This is a 1970 Mustang Fastback. And the first thing I noticed is it's got 4 sets of taillights in it. Instead of just having 2 taillights, it's got a full taillight panel that's just packed with lights. And then as we look around on it, it's got a sunroof in it, which really hurts your heart when you think about how rare these cars are and the fact that somebody would cut a hole in the roof of one of these things. And that taillight panel is a little bit easier to fix, but that roof is a big job. And remember that drag car that we started at way back at the beginning of this video? Well, that's the roof skin that he's wanting to put onto this project car. So, you know, he's got a plan for all these parts and pieces. This one's actually got a tunnel ram and 2 4s on it. Another really cool old school hot rod. One of Matt's favorite new projects is this 1956 Ford Fairlane.
This car will eventually be 429 4-speed.
Yeah.
It's got the original motor in it right now.
A couple more 1970s Fords include these 2 Gran Torinos. One is a notchback and one is what they call a turtleback. Both of these cars are pretty complete. Complete engine, transmission, lots of good parts here. After looking at an early 70s Mustang Coupe that was pretty nicely restored and had some cool 5-spoke wheels on it, we made our way around to the carport, which is where they store Matt's son's car. He bought this car a while back and he's been picking away at the details on it, and he's got some pretty big plans to improve the appearance and the performance of this car. Now, it already has a big motor in it. It's already got a 4-speed. It's already been painted. There's a couple of things that he wants to change to make the car a little bit more friendly on the street, but for the most part, this car is about the slickest thing that they've got. It is a really nice build. It's something that's about as close as you can get to being complete, but they do have plans to upgrade it in the future. Sitting next to that 64 Galaxy 500 is a car that used to belong to Matt's dad. This is a 1979 Mercury Cougar XR7. As we made our way around to the back of the property, Matt had a few more things he wanted to show me. First was a 1968 Camaro, and this thing it's a project for sure. It's rusty. There's a lot of work to be done, but there's already a lot of work that has been done on this car. It's mini tubbed, it's got a roll bar in it, it's got aluminum dash panel. You know, somebody's already put in a lot of work on the chassis and the suspension on this car, but it still needs a lot of body work. You can see that it's just sitting down on the ground in the front, no motor transmission, it's got drum brakes on it. You know, somebody would have to really get in there and spend a lot of money to make this car somewhat relevant today, but it's got the potential. But as we kept walking around here, he wanted to show me this wrecker that he's been using for years. It's an old International, and this thing looks a little bit rough. It kind of looks like the Towmater truck from the Cars movie, but this thing runs and drives great. He pulls heavy loads with it. As you can see, he's got a big Ford dump truck hooked to the back of this thing right now. This thing is well equipped for getting out and doing some serious work.
I'd take this old girl anywhere, buddy.
Finally, in the very back of the property, there was a few more Fords to look at. The first one is a Davey Allison edition Ford Thunderbird. Now, this is a pretty limited production car. Not many of these things were made, and of course they just had a regular 5-liter V8, nothing real fancy under the hood. But this limited edition car, you know, this could be brought back to life pretty easily. And then there's also a couple more Thunderbirds. These are 87 and 88 Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupes. These had turbocharged 2.3-liter 4-cylinder engines. One of the cars is an automatic, the other one is a 5-speed, which is much more desirable. And, you know, these cars, even though they've been sitting a long time, these things are starting to gain in value, and a lot of people are looking for this type of car because they're getting hard to find. A buddy of mine just bought a couple of these cars that have been sitting like 20-something years, and he just got them running. You need to go check out his channel. It's called Sleeper Dude. You'll see some content on these Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupes that he has bought. He's got lots of other videos too on things that he's scraped together and scrounged together and got running again. The last notable car back here in the back part of the property is this Ford Maverick Grabber. Now, this is a 6-cylinder car. It's not anything special as far as the drivetrain, but still, Mavericks are getting pretty hard to find. He's held on to this thing for a long time. A few weeks ago, I got an email from a guy named Frank Parks. He lives in Summerville, Georgia, and he runs a shop named Mopar Restos. And what I didn't fully understand, even though he told me that he had a big collection, he even called it a hoard, I didn't realize how big of a collection and how detailed of a collection this would be until I got there. So I wanted to try to do his collection justice, show it to you guys, and, you know, encourage you to reach out to people like this. This guy, he has every part you could ever need for a Mopar. He sells this stuff. I mean, this is a business for him. So I do want to make sure that I get his contact information there. I'm going to put that in the description. I'm also going to put it here on the screen. So this is a pretty cool opportunity. If you're restoring a Mopar muscle car, this is your guy. This is your connection to all of the legit parts. All of his cars outside of the building are affordable. They're A-bodies, meaning Dodge Darts, Plymouth Valiants, four-door cars, you know, really affordable stuff that you could get out and really use without worrying about, you know, messing up your high-dollar car. He's had the high-dollar cars, the B-body cars like the Roadrunners and Super Bs and so on, but he's used them for his business. He's bought and sold and traded on those cars to make money for his shop. So these A-body cars, they're part of his collection. These things aren't necessarily for sale, they're just things that he brought home. And his explanation for that is that 75% of these cars that are in his collection would have been crushed had he not bought them. So even though they're sitting outside, they're getting rusty, they're, you know, not improving at all by sitting out here, but it's better than the alternative of these cars getting crushed. And, you know, he had a story for every single car of junk guys, you know, that knew him and would let him know about these cars that were about to be scrapped. And he was able to get in there and save them before they went to the crusher. So really neat to see this guy be so passionate about these cars, even though they're not the high-dollar auction cars that everybody dreams about. On most of my videos, I do all the talking. I kind of like to do the research. I like to research the cars and the parts and the people. But in this case, Frank is so in tune with his collection that I just kind of let him run with it. And I followed him around everywhere we went. We went in his backyard. We went into all of these different trailers. And we're talking about tractor trailers, 53-foot trailers, 6 of them, packed full of parts. All of them labeled, all of them documented. This is amazing.
I'd love to have them all indoors and they wouldn't be rusting, and that would be nice. But since I can't, at least they're better than being in the crusher. It's too good to crush in my eyes.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it's just very poor. The story is one family owned the car, used it up, a couple, you know, the kids or whatever, and parked it in 1974, and it was parked on their premises until they died.
Wow.
And then the junk man got it and tow-dollied that one up to the Mopar Nationals. It's a big block, 4-barrel 383, dual exhaust, 66 4-door.
Wow.
Very interesting. And it's one of like 200 something made.
That's cool.
It's a very low production. Of course, at the Mopar Nationals in the early mid-90s, twice I took it up there. All they wanted was the fenders and the front end of it.
Yeah. 4-door.
I drove it back here around 95, or that last year I took it up there, and that was it. It's never had a battery in it since, but it's a runner-driver car. Original paint, and I rescued that one out of North Georgia junkyard. It was going to be crushed. And this one here is a real 67 Ford LRT. This is mine. It's a basket case. It has a different front clip so people are thrown by it. But ME Motor's been on a stand, basically, not just here, but it's been on a stand since the early 70s.
Wow.
It was a motor out of a junkyard, was drag raced and hurt. And anyway, it came from an estate of man bought. I'm sort of jumping around, but that's a 68 344 speed GTS.
Okay.
Rescued out of it, literally at wrecking yard the week when I got it out of the tow dog. The next week, that little 100-yard was crushed. Done. I purchased it sitting on concrete blocks, no hubs, no rear end. They torched the leaf springs.
Wow.
No motor, no transmission. VIN number on the dash, unmolested. Data plate, unmolested. Very legible. Factory 4-speed car. So what do, instead of parting it out, I start going to Mopar Nationals and the big shows, and I buy a 68 motor, and I buy a 68 data radiator, and a 68 bell housing and 4-speed. I have all the parts correct to build that car. That's my old Valiant I drove in here in the late 80s. A $200 Valiant. A little 360 Duster. 74, big bumper car, $100 bill, at a junkyard, sitting with no motor, transmission, and the hood on the roof.
Wow.
$100 bill.
$100.
Towed it home on a tow dolly, put a Valari motor and tranny, 2-barrel, running motor, cleaned it all up and got it running, and it's never, that was in the early 90s.
Wow.
Life took over.
Yeah.
But it's
a good solid car.
Yes, sir, it still is. It's got a little rust in floorboard. I took the carpets out and stuff, but it's hung in there. Original Hemi orange, that's what caught my eye.
Yeah.
Gave $175 for that car. Behind a service station, they towed it in. The police caught a drunk in it from Alabama and towed it in, and the guy never picked it up. So I bought it for the storage.
Wow.
273 2-barrel Dart GT, factory 4-speed car. Factory 8 3/4. That's the heavy-duty 340 style.
Yeah.
Suspension, sway bar, rear end.
Pretty well equipped car.
For a little GT, and it was a 2-barrel, missing the motor, but the 4-speed's still in it, and the shifter and everything. I rescued that one out of the Blackberry field. 344 speed. 1973 Georgia inspection sticker on it.
Yeah.
Take a look at this side. That's what killed it. It got totaled in 1973.
Oh. Goodness.
344 speed. Look at the 4-speed still sticking out of the floor. It got wrecked behind a house, downwind of a big coal-fired Georgia power plant. So all that coal goodies rusted. The car was a Georgia car, but look at what it did. And this was like that when I bought it. I've had this car 30 years.
Wow.
And it was, I'm sure it's gotten worse, but that was it.
Just ate up.
But it still has the original dual point, the high flow 340 manifolds, the original carb. I've got the air breather for it, but it's a complete drivetrain. And I thought by now, certainly I would have utilized it. I could have sold it a million times, but anyhow. Sort of rare.
Yeah.
And there's a 69 body to put it in, another 69 body with beautiful rust-free floors. Ugly cars with rust-free floors, rust-free trunks. This one I bought in the early 90s. It's come from Alabama. It was very weathered like this. It's an original paint, never been painted on. 72 340 3-speed Demon. Original rallies, disc brakes. I drove this car back here when I first moved here in spring of '94.
Really?
Backed it up, took the battery out. It has never run again. And it's 100% matching number car. I mean, the alternator's original in this car.
Wow.
The ignition box on it. It looks horrible. It's been old, you try to preserve it. But the alternator still got the original little tags and little wire fingers on it. The original spark box, the original distributor, original carburetor. I mean, dated original parts, not just replacement of that correct model number, but the dated. It's all original. A lot of sheet metal.
Yeah.
Most of it at this point is, some of it still trickles out here, but most of it's just sort of here. I used to sell a lot. All this is, I used to have 2 other yards that I leased, and that was my whole wrecking yard, and then everything got condensed here at the end, as far as my parts went. Rescued it when scrap was $16 a hundred. I got $600 plus storage in that thing, and it's worth about $200. But I see it was going to the crusher. I bought it from that recycle man. He got it, and it's a local lumber yard. He drug it out of the woods. You can barely see the signage on one of the doors. Key still hanging in the ignition.
Really?
Yep. It was parking like it had a 76 plate on it on the flatbed. Literally rescued these pair of Project Rat Rod 1-ton trucks. This was the better one. Rescued them as a pair from north here. They were going to the crusher, literally.
Yeah.
It was me or the crusher, and they treated me fair on the price I bought them. These are the holy grail pieces for '67 Coronet RTs. NOS ones. We got a lady in town. She gave like $2,500 for a pair of those NOS years ago. Wow. It's been 5-10 years ago. Yeah. For one of her cars. But and I didn't know you'd find them NOS anymore. But I found this car in Alabama up on Sand Mountain. Inside, I've got over 100 motors in stock and over 100 transmissions racked up in stock. Thought I would do well with them. Now everybody wants late model Hemi stuff. Yeah. Well, it's an 8 3/4 car. That's why I bought it. Local car. It would have gone to the local recycler, and that rear end would have gone to the.
Yeah, it'd be gone.
There was no Mopar people here that cared.
Yeah.
This one, rusty floors, solid trunk, tree damage. Man called me from over near LJ, Georgia. No, he put it on Craigslist, and I called him, and then he returned my call. But anyway, basically he had to move out of the house, and he didn't want to crush the car.
Yeah.
So he was begging for a buyer. He treated me fair. Said it would run. I went over and bought it, and he would put it on the tow dolly, and it does run. A little 6-cylinder 303. And I bought it home. It's a V8, a little burgundy car with a burgundy interior, with all the little chrome, and it's a little chrome photo. Boy, that was a pretty little car in this day with all that beautiful burgundy, and just, to me, it needs floors. Of course, no one wants to fix a four-door, much less a crusty one, so there it sits. But it had the wideband wheels on it. The GTS, they're in the trunk now. I took them off and put them in the trunk. But the numbers matching, original everything.
Yeah.
I had to rebuild the power steering, reseal the power steering pump. And I started looking at the brakes. The brakes don't function. But this, I drove it here. It'll run, it'll start up again. I haven't started in 10 years. But it'll start off the bottom. This is a sort of a catch-all, and it's the least organized. I don't know the lighting. Years ago, when I built all the racks, I got this a 53-foot trailer. It's got wheel racks on double wheel racks all the way down the whole length of it with vintage Mopar. These are small wheel pattern, my wideband wheels like for my GTSs and stuff. But a mix of wheels, and then I have these wheels and tires, rubber. But try to utilize the space.
Yeah, you did a good job of that. For sure.
I do a lot of welding and fabricating. And I just sold this set. I've got a lot of sets of wheels. There ain't nothing exotic, not the Hemi H wheels. I've still got one Hemi H wheel, but I don't have any exotic wheels. But to me, just original wheels, 14-inch, are exotic.
Yeah.
To have a max set of 5 or 4 to offer somebody or to put on your own car. I like that myself. Better than a replacement wheel. That's all 4-speed stuff on it. And a buddy of mine scored the old Sheldon out of a Dollar General store years ago. Thanks, Dale. He turned me on to this Sheldon. I had to weld brackets on it, but wonderful Sheldon. I need more.
I like all these tires up here.
Yeah, even got some Cokers.
Given that I work at Coker,
You have a set of them? Yeah.
Looks like
That's red lines. A few little goodies like some 8 3/4 housings. I've already got them blasted. I got some for my own lay bodies.
Yeah.
Like a Dana, a few Danas. One of them's for that 67 RT. That's a customer's Dana. I got another Dana, a 41070, all built, except for the brakes. It's gonna. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Probably my black RT. Converted to a 4-speed. I saved the Hemi 4-speed, and I saved all the 4-speed parts. Big block A body K-frames, 67 through 9. A buddy's turned me on to one, and I just bought another. They're hard to find, but I've got that's a mix and stuff. But here's some. These are a 1-ton van. That's not okay. Goodies start here. Stainless steel. 60. They reproduce these now, and they bring $300 a set repros. Yeah. But all these are stainless steel red rings. They're 69, 70. Some more red rings, even some aluminum for these 71 and 2 Demon cars and stuff. Very nice takeoffs, very nice originals. Again, I've never sold my nice ones. That's why I have them. And then these, I just had a couple people wanted these. They're very hard to find. They put them on little 69, 70 Valiants. But they also put them on Hemi Roadrunners, Hemi Cooters. Stainless, they don't reproduce them. I don't know what they bring. These are nice. I got 5 sets or whatever of them. I have cop cars for sale and those with the wheels. The generics. These are your 71 up, no name Plymouths and stuff. Aluminum, nice. Most of them, show quality, driver quality. 68 darts, 68 for your GTSs and stuff. I've never sold them other than to upgrade. I've got, there's my wheels, my correct wheels, I'm not saying I won't sell those, but they're not going yet. I got plans with $68. These are very hard to come by. 67, 68, Dodge, your Chargers, your Coronets, you know, very, they don't reproduce them. I don't know what they're worth. I've sold a buddy a set of those. These might bring $200 or more, $300 a set to the right person, cleaned up. I don't know. I've got enough value, so I want to keep them. Some of the bigger ones, they're rare. 67 GTX, I only got one set of those. You know, any of the cheap Belvederes and stuff, but that's what the GTX would have. And you have to have the correct early wheels for these large diameter. Come on in here. This is just transmissions. I've got 5 racks. I built all these racks. These are the last ones I did years ago. But 5 racks of these indoors. I do sell some. You know, I save it all. 6-cylinder. You know, I save it all. 318 904s. Some are 727s. You save them all. This is all automatic transmission shift linkages. You used to sell the more common ones. Some of the I save C-body stuff. No one wants it. You know, that's the stuff I'll die with, and that's my reality. But that's all right. But I do have a lot of kickdown linkages and stuff I've hoarded because they're always hard to find, and they're $400 or $500 now for reproductions. So I was lucky enough to find some sets, like a master set off a Roadrunner or something, and I would keep it and use it as a reference. So when I went to a swap meet and bought a pail of parts and got 6 pieces, I would come home and I could make sets. You know, your trinkets become treasure at that point.
Sure, absolutely.
But you have to be smart enough not to sell a set for $100. You know, don't short sell it. And I still got, you know, some of my reference sets taped up. Like I got a set up for a 440 GTX. They didn't come often. Very hard to find, even 30 years, 25 years ago. And even when I needed the money, I didn't sell the stuff. A lot of smalls. This is just smalls. Anything from armrests. I basically cleaned out of my shop. I put all these shelves up like 3 winters ago, and I had the trailer body, but I didn't have it organized. And all this stuff basically come out of my shop and parts building. A lot of fenders. Luckily, they're indoors. I got a lot of A-body fenders. Some for sale, but you know, some are very nice for some of the cars I have. I'll show you a bunch of other fenders. This is like I told you, I've got a motor. This whole thing, just motors. Both sides, buried. And these are not on carts. I drug these in with a chain, this chain fall over the doorways, and drug them in on the oil pans. I mean, that's just the way they are, but they're dry. And most of them, if I pulled them out of a car, they would be whole. And most of the times I would not strip a motor, even when I could have sold a power steering pump or a carburetor. I never did. I didn't. It just wasn't. If somebody wants one, I'll strip it now to a point and work with them. This is a hoard, and I'm out of storage space, but I utilize what I can. It's full. But every little piece, everything. Like here's some, like B-body, your satellite Roadrunner Coronet air conditioning vent, 68 satellite, right? You know, and the date and what it came off of. Every little piece tag. Even some of these, like I tried eBaying and I did some B-body heater controls. I cleaned them up and I got some fair money for them. I'm going to do more of that when I can in the future. You can't put them dirty and nasty and get anything for them. You can give them away. A-body 4-speed humps. That's not for sale ever. You know, I got a console stashed. I'm out of space. That's cool. But I know where they're at. I got A-body stuff everywhere. Wiper motors. I just sold a couple wiper motors. I usually don't sell a lot, and I sold two little 2-speed wiper motors, cheap, $30 and $40, you know, cheap. But you don't normally get to sell those too often. Wiper arms, I've sold a lot. Wipers have been very good to me, and I've kept every one of them very organized. A bodies I'm hoarded up on. My B bodies, all the more desirable ones, I'm out of. Like the Roadrunner wiper arms and stuff, they just started reproducing a few years ago. Thank God, because I was out of them. Didn't have any more. Not even a parts one. I still got linkages and stuff, and a few motors. Alternators and starters. Some very, very rare to have a date that's correct. But I see some of these guys, some of these, you know, they're asking $300, $400, $500, $600 for one restored. You know, with the dated this and that. I haven't gone there. I have never. If I've noticed a special date when I disassembled it, I will wrote on the tag.
Yeah.
But I don't have time to mess with it. All these are engines again. These are on roller carts. Some were runners, some weren't. I got a real jewel in here. This is one rack. I'll get you in the shop later. I got a rack. We had another rack of 4-speeds in the end of that other trailer body, which in the dark, who cares? Here's a rack of 4-speed stuffish. The highlight here, I waited till 2 other guys, Mopar flippers. One guy's still alive and kicking Mopar full time, for a 70-year-old man. Hemi 4-speed, A-body aluminum case. I thought it was like a super stock tranny, like a Hemi car. I've come to learn they didn't put those in a super stock. And Ronnie Sox told me that. I talked to him at Bristol show. I described what I have. This has Liberty gears, it's clutch to synchros, the dog gear type things. I've never drove one in my life, but this is an NOS transmission. No markings of no witness marks ever where it was bolted up to anything. Still got the Liberty gears, etched into the. You see the old vintage prices on it. That was from the other man. I traded some Hemi exhaust manifold. I got like $1,200 or $1,000+ in it.
Wow.
I've had it for a number of years. I'm sure it's a very sellable piece. I thought I would use it. I had these dreams of a big monstrous big block in a street, but I found you can't drive that on the street.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Still a super cool piece.
Yes, sir. And it's an NOS one at that, so
Yeah.
that is a super cool piece. And I got it, looking at it, and it took me like almost 14 years or something to get it. One man had it, and then he wouldn't get rid of it, and then he sold it to this dealer friend of mine in Alabama, and that's who I got it from when he was ready to flip it. All these motors and dash parts, but you walk past, you just don't know. This one here, a 383 high performance. Of all things, see the unsilenced Roadrunner style breather? Original carb, originally made 79,000 original miles. This thing come out of a 69 Fury, big full C-body wagon, red on red. The man's that gave me this, his dad bought the wagon brand spanking new, a red on red wagon, and he grew up in it, and his dad died. The wagon had got wrecked on one side, and it just weathered down in the backyard, and I ended up, he knew I wouldn't scrap it out, that I would save what I could, and I want to put that in the dark, minus the AC stuff. It's a strong run motor. I drove the car before I parted it. I mean, the Hoarder syndrome. 1 voltage regulator would be good, and maybe another one. I mean, at what point do you stop? I mean, now you're going to park this other car out in the front yard or in this junkyard, you're getting all this stuff. Well, hell, there's another voltage regulator. I mean, other than giving one to a friend and sticking one in the yard, I mean, what do you do? I'm not ready to, there are a couple NOS ones here and there stashed in there I'll use down the road, but how do you stop yourself? Here, they're keeper stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know what this is? A max wedge cross ram and max wedge heads. 3. These are used in the early 70s, and the man, this was laying in the back seat of a '64 Belvedere post car.
Wow.
It was not a max wedge car. It was a 6-cylinder car. The man raced it as a max wedge motor in the early 70s out in the country in Alabama, and the heads were in his barn. This stuff hadn't run in 100 years. And a buddy of mine turned me onto it, and I did some work for that man. But anyway, I ended up getting them, and I haven't done anything with it. Dual snorkels, keeper stuff at this point, more than I need. But I've always kept my high performance stuff. Relay body scoops, keeper stuff. Carburetors, a lot of junk carburetors. You take 3 or 4 to me, junk carburetors. They're a godsend.
Yeah.
I've never bought a new carburetor or a reman carburetor in my life. I've always, whether it's a slant 6 or for customers, I've rebuilt Hemi carburetors or 6-pack carburetors. Always rebuilt them. Just odd stuff you pick up. One set's like a Cal Custom. I think these are Cal Customs. Cool big block stuff. Let's see. Just for entertainment. This man's dead. A junkyard in Alabama. A friend took me to. I paid $15 a pair for those things in '93. for these. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Yeah, and I cleaned those up. I sandblasted that one, which is probably a no-no, but anyway, I don't know what I was doing. But anyhow, it is what it is. But I don't think I got hurt. They're not broken or anything. They're decent cores. You know, I could have flipped that kind of stuff, but I just realized keep it. And this here, a little small block, Mickey Thompsons. They came to me 05, but I got some big block Mickey Thompsons hiding in here. I just wanted for entertainment value, see what the tag said. But anyway, they're hiding. I've got them here. Some of the OEM valve covers got very pricey, and now they reproduce them. AMD reproduces them, but I'm not sure if they're still available. But anyhow, that's a 70-something 440 hiding in there, 77 or something. Smaller motor. It gets interesting over here. I've got some 340 A bodies out back, and I got 340 motors, but every motor has a car. And some of this stuff I have duplicate air breathers. I've never sold. Oh, that's 340 air breathers, these orange ones. And they're 70, 71 style up here. I got those up at the Mopar Nationals years ago, and I paid big, like 150 or something for one. And those are hard to find. And now they're eBay $400, $500, $600, stupid prices. But anyway, I'm not trying to cash out on those, but that's my future. This is all, whether it's a 340 carb cores, 340 blocks, 340 J heads, 340 X heads. All this is 30-year. Most of it's all from a long time ago. You don't get it anymore. It's just not out there. 340 exhaust manifolds. I got it. Some of it's 318 stuff. Don't be misled. But I got stashes. Like 5, 6, 7 sets of them. Enough for all my motors and cars. 340 cores down there. A couple of cores. They've had them for 30 years. Here's a cool little motor. 273 Commando. Factory little dress-up valve covers. Factory chrome air breather. Little 4-barrel AFB. Dual point distributor. Forged pistons.
Wow.
It's a little high performance. I think it was only rated at like 235.
Lots of trim.
And you put 100 pieces away, you might sell one. Well, you put 250 pieces away, you might sell a couple. There's a ratio there. It's not favorable. But A, B, and C. I got to segregate it and mix a bit, but it's there. I don't sell as much trim anymore. I used to sell repro, and people aren't doing it. They don't want original trim. They peel that crap off the side of the car. They don't want to spend the money to restore. This was the first trailer body I set down in '94. All these big block motors, and they're all on carts. There's not a lot, like some rusty reined in crap. The earliest motor, I was trying to think before you come here, that down there is a 63 383 2-barrel. I pulled it out of a Newport, complete motor. And that's the earliest, of anything. I don't think I have anything earlier than that as far as my motors. See that orange one hiding right there? Mm-hmm. That is a 1969 Roadrunner 383 high performance. Got it out of a junkyard in Alabama. Sitting in the engine place in their big junkyard, a block building that the roof blew off of before I got there. They've already built it's a junkyard still in business. They already built a new engine building, and there was a few engines out there had been rained on, and this was one of them. It still had the power steering, the big Magnum high pro manifolds, missing the carb, but again, everything's tagged. And I am pulling parts out of here. This is a trailer of all these brake boosters. Just recently got off the floor here onto the shelves because I took other stuff out and put them in another trailer. It's evolving, but it's not a priority. I spend more time if I start looking for something. I'll do a little mini organization and then go on. Like I just come in and see the steering boxes. I just come out here and got at the very end. I pulled a steering box out for a 69 Super Bee and rebuilt it for a customer just the other day on the workbench. And I wish I could, find some more customers that want a dated, original, correct, not a core that's from the 80s or something, but an original that's dry, stored properly. Again, more craft, more. I probably can sell some of these big block trannies to the guys with the motors. I still have hope of selling some 440s and big block trannies, but there's a lot of trannies there. Of course, you got to have your little slant 6. I'm a slant 6 fiend. Oh yes, the wheel covers. And I got the wheel covers, or the nice ones, the sets are inside. But check out the mag wheel covers.
Yeah, I like those. Up there.
Everywhere you look, up. And just like all these air conditioning lines, I got a lot of Dart stuff I'll never use, but they're keepers. And that's about, the rest is C and some B body, not too desirable B, but it's mostly for sale, except for my Choice A body lines. And in like 15 years, I haven't sold maybe a couple. And that's the Hemi engine, all took apart, the box on the stand. But it's a 67 Hemi engine, and it was off the road since the early 70s.
Yeah, I noticed
Six
carburetors.
6 Stromberg 97s on a Max Wedge port cross ram.
I was going to ask what it.
And there, it's got the big ports like a Max Wedge.
Yeah.
And it has no casting number, no name, nothing. No ID whatsoever on it.
Wow.
Chrome plated linkage. One accelerated pump link is missing. Other than that, they all open and close, drive. They're a match set. I don't know too many people you can just go pull out bins, but this is all going to the Mopar Nationals. These tags tell the story. This, I think, is an aftermarket 67 shifter I bought. 4-speed with console. Yeah, this is an aftermarket hearse, but if it's made, it's not like a factory hearse A-body. It's been a little different, but anyway, it's a factory. It's a cool piece for a non-original shifter, and it will come up through the original 4-speed A-body, and super hard to come by. I have seen some more of those. This is sort of like a holy grail piece in the A-body world. A little 4-speed hearse. This one's just the way I bought it. This one came at the Nationals. 92 Nats. I gave $20 for this thing in 92, and I knew it was rare.
Yeah.
That 4-speed GT out there out of the Blackberry patch has the same shifter still in it. All these years untouched. And I have another one of these here up here. The whole shifter. For an A-body guy. Brewers reproduces the handles today, and they're probably like 400 or 300, but they don't say Hearst on them.
Yeah.
He didn't want to get into the licensing deal. And went through it. I didn't know how good it was, but it turned out to be a good core transmission. And it's all correct. Correct shifter, correct linkage. A buddy of mine re-chromed that years ago through year one at the Hearst program, but 69 Super B side scoops. I've sold like 3 sets of those. I still got one odd one I never could sell. But bucket seats, security system, 80,000 mile car. I saved that when the man was going to rob the motor and tranny out of that thing and put it in the Coronet. It's a complete whole motor. Got this in the early 90s. One of my customers in the Keys of Florida, I was sending parts to. He's still down there. We still contact each other every once in a while, just as friends. This he found in a wrecking yard down there in the Keys. And it was in a big Dodge full-size C-body Polara. Local car. Old lady got sick or ill, whatever. They towed the car in the junkyard. The man knew he had something special.
Yeah.
It's a 65 426 street wedge. Not a Hemi, but a street wedge. Not a Max wedge. Single 4-barrel. 365 horse. Dual point distributor. The AFB carb, it's like a junior 440 before the 440 came out.
Wow.
And they only made in like 64 and 5, 2 years. They put these in like the Dodge and Plymouth mid and full size cars. There was only like 2,500 packages in all 4 car years and models. Very rare package.
That's crazy.
Charger interior, that one I'm working on. You just never have enough room. And you gotta have slant 6s and a flathead 6. I mean, you just never have enough 6 on this, right? The market's hot for them. But anyway, you gotta save them. Gotta save them. You have to let them room before you bring them back. The people that bought this car new in town and left, their sister got married here in town the next year. And borrowed this car in 1967, it's a 66 car, and took it to Panama City or wherever for their honeymoon.
Wow.
So they got fond memories. They're both alive. And the son is our local school superintendent for the county, and they're going to restore their car. I've been working on it for them. I had to put AMD floors, AMD trunk, an original quarter. There's a man in Rome, Georgia had it. It was always an old Georgia car, since new. And he used to go to all the shows, Atlanta, everywhere you went to a Mopar show, he lived in this region.
Yeah.
He went beyond what I went to. And I never owned a big block A body. So I met him at the shows, and I said, well, I can't buy one, but I'm going to buy the parts. I'm going to clone them. So I started going to the Mopar Nationals. But this man, his name is David Cole. He taught me at the shows what significant parts were on these cars, the K-frames and the mounts and the radiators and the manifolds. And he did not sell it to me. It went for 4 months to another Mopar buddy of mine.
Man, what an awesome day. I got to follow Frank around pretty much all afternoon, listening to these stories about all these cars and parts and pieces. And, I really admire Frank for his ability to document all of these things and remember the stories. And, it's just pretty amazing. On this episode of Hot Rod Hoarders, I'm going to show you the hidden treasures at one of my favorite drag strips of all time, Paradise Dragstrip in Calhoun, Georgia. The track's history goes back to 1961. That's when Otto Timms built the place. He wanted somewhere between Chattanooga and Atlanta to race, and Calhoun, Georgia was the right spot. So he built this quarter-mile track. He ran it for years, had match races there, super stock races. Lots of big names came there. Richard Petty even raced there in 1965 with his AFX car. Otto was the type of guy that made you feel like family, and he encouraged people, and he made them feel at home, made them feel welcome. So the track has been successful for all these years. Now, Otto passed away several years ago, and he left everything to his family, and they're still operating the track to this day. Back when I was a kid, I used to love going through my dad's photo albums, looking at cars he had owned, cars that he had painted, and one picture that always stood out to me was a picture of my dad's Henry J drag car on the starting line at Paradise Dragstrip. You can see the tower in the background. You can kind of also see that the starting line is not level. So like if you have a 4-speed car, the car will roll backwards when you're trying to stage. So you'll see in this picture, that's actually my dad's buddy, Junior, driving the car, and that's my dad holding the car in position. The point of this is that I was already in love with Paradise Dragstrip before I ever went there. Otto was a drag racer and a hot rodder at heart, so he had projects and toys of his own. Some of them are more functional than others, so I'm going to show you a mixture of the more usable cars and the stuff that just went out in the woods for years and years and years. Let's get started with some of the cars that were visible from the pits and the staging lanes at Paradise Dragstrip, and then stick with me a little bit later and I'm going to go out into the woods to show you some of the stuff that hasn't moved in decades. One of the more recognizable cars in the collection is the Paradise Rebel Vega Funny Car. Now this thing does have some history. I'm not sure exactly the details of that. So if I do dig up some history on it, I'll be sure to tell you guys about it. But for now, let's just take a look at how cool this thing is. It is totally 70s. It's got the old Vega Funny Car body, The old style frame, big block Chevrolet with a tunnel ram and 2.4s, really cool piece. They also have a rear engine dragster. It's kind of a late 70s, early 80s type build. It's got a little small block in it, still a functional car. Other cars that I spotted through the years was a 3rd generation Camaro, big tire bracket car. There was also a Ford Thunderbird, sort of a mid-80s car that reminds you of a pro stock car or maybe a top sportsman car of the time. And then there was a Pro Street 1st generation Pontiac Firebird that sat on the property for years. Now, you might recognize this car because Mike Finnegan bought this car from the Timms family there at Paradise Dragstrip. And since he bought it, he's put a blower on it, he's driven it across country, he's done a lot of cool stuff with this car. And it's awesome to see this thing that sat, and I remember specifically seeing it sitting under the carport. It's awesome to see this thing back on the road and seeing it doing burnouts and doing all sorts of fun stuff. One of the cars that really got my attention was this split window Corvette funny car. Now this thing is kind of crazy because it was used for truck and tractor pulling way back in the 80s. Now these cars, they were known for their wheelies, you know, they were really kind of the showman's class of truck and tractor pulling. You know, flip up bodies, which this thing has an extremely thick body, something you couldn't pick up on your own. So it had a hydraulic ram that picked the thing up, and just a super cool piece. Now, it'd been sitting for years, the paint was a little rough, the tires were dry rotted, but I loved seeing this thing. Number one, I love this body style of Corvette. Number two, I grew up watching monster trucks and truck pulling and all that kind of stuff. So something like this really just kind of speaks to me. I haven't been able to track down the full history on this thing, but I know that David Ballou built it originally in the mid-80s. Then he ended up selling it to John Hanson, who repainted it and gave it this paint job, the Why Not a Vet on the side of it. Anyways, it sat here in the yard basically of the track for years. Moved around to a few different places. Since then it has been sold, and I've seen it bounce around on Craigslist and Marketplace a few different times. I think it's in Alabama. So now that we've seen the cars that were out in the open where you could see them from the staging lanes or from the pits or wherever, let's go into the woods to see some of the hidden treasure that this track has to offer. There's a lot of property here, and as you go further and further back in there, there's cars that have been in the woods for no telling how long. There's some pretty crazy stuff back in here. So let's go take a walk, and you'll be able to hear drag racing in the background. It was during one of their events. So just kind of walk along with me, check out some of the absolute treasures that are hidden in the woods at Paradise Dragstrip. Looks like a 62 Impala, 4-door car. Man, you can't see much of it at all. It's grown up bad. We got another Impala way back in there that can't tell much about it. It's wrecked. Probably another 4-door car. Alright, looks like we got an early Mustang convertible, maybe a 67 or 8. Maybe a 64 or 5. Man, these things are grown up. Yep. Still got the Malibu emblem on the back of it. Trees are just surrounding it. Crazy. Got a little square body stepside truck. This thing looks like it hadn't been here all that long. Pretty cool. Actually fairly solid. It's kind of crazy. Oh, look at these back wheels. That is awesome. Somebody's made those. They cut the center out, probably banded the wheel to make it wider, and then put that center way in there. Got an old station wagon here. I can't tell much about it. Let's see here. Looks like an A-body, maybe a Pontiac. Man, I don't know. All the windows are busted out of it. I'm sure it's rusty underneath. Still cool to see it out here in the woods though. Old Chevrolet truck hiding back in there. You can barely see a little piece of it. Back piece of something. Don't know what. We got some good stuff coming up here. We got an old race car Looks like a little Chevy 2 race car right here. Race car project, let's say. It doesn't look like it ever got finished. No floors, no guts. It's got a Pinto or a Mustang 2 front end under it. Completely gutted out. Got a narrow 9-inch housing hanging in back there, ladder bars, full roll cage. Man, it's actually pretty solid. What in the world? How is it not rusty? Ooh, this is a good one. 66 or 7 Nova. Pretty rotten. Pretty rotten. Sitting here flat on the ground. Man. I still like the little race car. That's my favorite so far. Here's a 4-door Nova. 66 or 7 model. It's had better days. It's had the front end kind of tore off of it here. We got a 69 Chevelle, it looks like, or a piece of one anyways. It's had trees fall on it and all kind of stuff. Man, it's packed in here right next to about a mid-70s Camaro. It's got the aluminum bumpers. Mid-70s car. And then we got a 57 Ford. It's a 2-door wagon, so that would have been a ranch wagon. And look at this. Dragstrip racetrack. Let's see if we can get a little closer look at, see what that says. Okay, this says, up on top, you can barely see it in those faded letters. Paradise Inn. Yeah. Paradise Inn Dragstrip Racetrack, Calhoun, Georgia. Oh man, how cool is that? We got a, looks like an NHRA sticker on the windshield. Man, otherwise this car is just absolutely killed. Man, it's rough. It's got John's Pistons sticker. That's awesome. Inside's is just full of stuff. Oh, this is amazing. Look at that windshield. How did that not get busted out? Sitting here in the woods. Crazy. That right there, that's got to be the coolest thing here. We got to get through some briars and stuff. See if we can get there. Oh yeah. Yeah, can't really read the other side either, but man, that is cool. Let's see what's inside. Anything good? You see? That is just beyond cool. I guess I gotta get to the back of it and see if there's any lettering back there. Here's old drag racing slick, all wadded up. It's pretty cool. Oh, that's an old Mickey Thompson. Cool. Man, this. Let's see here. What does this say on the back? It's got lettering back here. It says, home of the. Oh man, I can't see it. Paradise Scramblers, I think is what that says. Home of the Paradise Scramblers. It doesn't get much cooler than that. That is awesome. It's rusty, but man, it is cool. About a 60 model, looks like a 60 model Chevrolet. 4-door car, no motor. But look at that interior in there. Isn't that crazy? How did that not just completely rot away? Still together. I got a late Model S10. That doesn't look like it belongs, but whatever. And then look at this. Not too often you see two 60s GTOs stacked on top of each other. The bottom one looks like about a 65. Top one is a 66 or 7. Man. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Look at that GTO in the grill. This thing is demolished. Get a good look at that frame and rear end. We got a little two-door Falcon. It's had a bad day. I don't know if that was a wreck or if a tree fell on it, but either way, tore up pretty bad. No motor. Got a couple tires stacked in here. Here's a four-door Fairlane. Looks like about a 63, if I had to guess. But I see the little fins on the back. That tells me 62 or 3. Pretty clean car, mostly together. Some kind of big Chevrolet hood, I'm guessing mid to late 60s. Okay, here we go. Got a 55 Chevrolet, two-door post. Man, it is rotten. It's been painted a few times, it looks like. It's got lots and lots and lots of pine needles. 57 Chevrolet front end sitting here upside down. I'd say that's rusty, but look at that. Stainless steel trim, still there. Still looks pretty good. Some crumbled up Chevelle fender is what it looks like. I always like the looks of these little Falcons, little two-door hardtop. They got a cool little body line, cool roof line, and they're little lightweight cars, good for drag racing. There's our GTO buddies again. Best friends forever. Let's see what we got here. Oh, Chatsworth, Georgia dealer plate. Cool. Yep, it's a big old car. Big old Malibu. Now this one's actually pretty solid too. Kind of crazy that it's so solid sitting out here like this. It's obviously been here a while. Very cool. Third gen Camaro. Pretty crusty. Oh, it's a hot rod. It's got a cowl hood. Can't see much else. It's kind of yucky looking. Let's see what else we got here. We got an early Falcon, two-door hardtop. Man, it's got moss growing on it pretty bad. And we got another little Ford here. This one's pretty solid. That's a buildable car. I'm sure the floor pans and stuff are rotten, but very buildable compared to its brother over here. Got some kind of old Ford right there, Torino LTD. I don't know. Might have to help me out on that one in the comments, because I don't know my Fords all that well. Pretty complete car. Pretty solid too. Very buildable. Some kind of frame. Looks like maybe a A-body. It's hard to say. Let's see here. We got a 57 Chevrolet four-door station wagon. Looks like it was a 210, if I'm looking at my details right here. 210 station wagon. It's got a lot of rust in there. It's okay. It's got some moss growing on it. A little bit here and there. Okay. We got what used to be a Pontiac. Pretty messed up. Oh, we got a 4-door Chevelle. What are we looking at here? 66 is what it's looking like. 66 4-door Chevelle. It's a Malibu trim package. I mean, it could use some quarters, but very buildable. Crazy. Little Falcon station wagon. Love these Falcon wagons. Those are cool. And it is absolutely full with hubcaps and random stuff. I see a transmission poking out. I kind of want to get a closer look in there. See what else is in there. Mainly hubcaps. Yep. Almost all hubcaps. All right, we got a little Chevy 2. Pretty early one. 62 to 65, it looks like. 2-door post. It's a 300, which means it had a little bit of trim on it. The 100s had no trim. They were your base model cars. Let's see here. We got an early Mustang. Wind is busted out of it. Let's see what we got. 2-door hardtop. Malibu, it says. Pretty rough. Hey, we got a Corvette. I can't tell what year it is yet. I'll get a little closer to it. It's obviously a 3rd generation, a C3 car, but I can't see much about it to tell if it's an early one or a late one or what it is. All I can tell is that it's had the front end cut off of it, frame and all. That must have been wrecked. It's a neat old barn. What we got here? Torino, I'm guessing. Torino with the back end cut off of it. Got a few little treasures in there, hubcaps and wheels and stuff. Hoods and the engine blocks, all kinds of stuff. Got some random parts over here, truck beds, motors, a little small block Chevrolet. Yep. Another little Chevrolet motor. Another little Chevrolet motor, 6-cylinder. Can't tell what that one is. Not a Chevrolet. I don't know. 57 Chevrolet hood sitting here. Back around to that 55 we saw earlier. There's a 57 front end. Got a little small block motor hiding under the hood there. Alright, we got a 58 Ford. 2-door post. Man, this car's got a lot of trim and stuff on it. Bumper still looks usable. That's pretty good. Let's see what else we can see about it. Windows are busted out of it. But man, lots of usable trim. We've got a little Corvair panel van. That thing's got some serious patina and rust. What else we got? Got old Chevrolet station, or it's not a station wagon, panel van, panel truck. I'll get it right here in a minute. Yeah. It looks like maybe a 58 or 9. Rusty. Pretty cool though. '64 5 Chevelle, 2-door hardtop, originally blue it looks like. This one's cool, 56 Chevrolet, looks like a 210, 4-door station wagon. Pretty rusty, been here a while. Trees laying on it, trees pushing up against it. 55 Chevrolet station wagon, 2-door. Got a C10 or maybe 20. Yeah, I think it's a 20. It's 8 lug. It's buried. I can't even tell what the car is next to it. Not sure. Can't get in there to it for all the briars and sticks and stuff. Oh, here's another 55, it looks like. 55 Chevrolet, two-door post. Pretty crusty old car. Still cool. All right, let's see. Let's see if we can guess. It's a 68 or 9. See a Malibu emblem on it. It's two-door hardtop. Mostly complete. A couple of Fords. We got a little Falcon, two-door hardtop. It's crunched in on the front fender here and on the back and everywhere else. We got a, looks like a 64 Ford Fairlane. That's cool. Two-door hardtop. Windows are busted out of it, unfortunately. It's probably rotten underneath, but pretty presentable out here. These are really neat cars. A couple of really good Fords. I didn't even notice this car sitting here. I can't get to it. Looks like a 64 Chevelle. Maybe a 65. Cannot tell. Two-door hardtop, I can tell that. That's about it. Here we go, two 64 Impalas it looks like. Both of them look like they're two-door hardtops. I gotta say a huge thank you to the Timms family. They've always been welcoming and supportive, and I just appreciate them letting me roam around in the woods and check out all the cars and stuff in their collection. And I just gotta say, to support your local drag strip, keep those places open. And if you're ever in the Calhoun, Georgia area, you gotta check out Paradise Dragstrip. It is one of the coolest tracks in the country. In this episode of Hot Rod Hoarders, I'm introducing you to Denny George. He's got a crazy collection of cars, nearly 100 cars scattered all around in different buildings and barns, and even has a boneyard out back that's full of treasures, including 2 old drag cars which he destroyed back in the day. Denny tells us all about those experiences, shares how he escaped major injury with these 2 crashes. You gotta stick around and hear those stories. Before I get too carried away, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and feel free to leave a comment down below. I had the great privilege of growing up with a shop right outside our back door, so there was cool stuff getting built every day and every night of the week. Some of the coolest projects belong to Denny George. He's known for putting a big block Chevrolet in just about anything, and during my childhood, I got to see several really cool cars be built right there, again, right in my backyard. Basically, every project that I ever remember, Denny still has it. And what's even cooler than that is that we have pictures dating back to the late 70s and early 80s of a lot of Denny's projects. My dad was really good about taking pictures of his cars and his friends' cars. So that's built up a really cool archive of old car pictures that I flipped through my whole childhood. The great thing with Denny is that you don't have to flip through old photo albums to see pictures of his old cars. You can go take a picture of it right now. He's kept almost everything. So I wanted to be able to show you his collection, and I wanted to visit all the different places that he has these cars scattered around, because he'll run out of room at a particular building and he'll start putting them in another place, and then he'll put them over here and put them over there, and he's got some in a barn, some in a shed, some in a big metal building, some out in the woods. He's got a little bit of everything. So let's go ahead and get into this. So we're going to start this journey with the nice stuff. He's got several cars put in this giant metal building. This used to be called Pikeville Tool and Die. This was kind of his side business that he had for many years. It's shut down now, but it's still a great building. It's got a lot of good machinery in here, and it's still got plenty of space for cars. So he uses every square inch of it. So let's take a look at some of the cool stuff in here. The first car I want to tell you about is a 1957 Chevy Bel Air convertible. This thing is pro street. It's got a big block blower, 2 4s, the whole 9 yards. and it gets attention wherever it goes. And sometimes it drives people crazy because they think that he's cut up a really valuable or rare car, when actually this is a fiberglass body. This was used as a sign for a 50s restaurant back in the 80s and 90s. And my dad ended up knowing a guy who bought out several of those cars from this restaurant chain, and they built a few cars out of those fiberglass bodies. You know, the cars had legitimate 57 Chevrolet trim, windshield, bumpers, but just the body itself was fiberglass. And on this one, it actually didn't have functional doors. It was just smooth down the side, and they cut in those doors. They put real door jambs in it, real door hinges, real latches. You know, everything works like it should. They put it on a Buick Regal frame. They back halved it, put the giant Mickey Thompson tires under the back, and you know, this car's been on the road for over 20 years. He has drove this thing thousands and thousands of miles, and you know, to see people go crazy over it, whether they love it or whether they think he's cut up a $100,000 car. Another cool car that was built in my dad's shop is this 1940 Ford Coupe. Now this car is another pro street car, big block Chevrolet, blower, 2 4s, and it's got some body modifications that are pretty cool. It's got suicide doors, hidden hinges, shaved drip rails. With any of Denny's cars, you'll see as we go through the collection, stance is a big part of the formula on his build. So, you know, this is another good example of that. And another example of a car built at my dad's shop. So we've got some cool pictures and even video of this thing. I'm going to show it to you here, of them driving this car with no body on it. They just drove the frame around the block. I mean, this is just one of the many adventures that Denny and my dad have been on. You know, that's kind of their thing. When they get something where it'll run and drive, they've got to go around the block in it. Even if they're holding the gas tank and the battery, and you know, they'll do whatever it takes to go around the block. Another car with that patented Denny George stance is this 37 Chevrolet Coupe. It's sitting in the weeds in the front. He's got airbags up front. It's got Halbrand wheels on it. This thing just has a killer look to it. As we move further back in the shop, you'll see an Opel GT drag car. Now this thing is pretty close to being functional. He has driven it, but he doesn't race it all that often. Another cool cruiser is this Lincoln Continental. It's got the suicide doors in the back. It's sitting low. It's ready to hit the road. Tucked in behind the Lincoln Continental is a 1956 Chevrolet Nomad. Now this car started as an extremely rough project, really rough, and he pieced it together with everything he could scrape up. And once again, it's got that perfect stance, got big tires on the back, sitting low in the front. It is a little rougher around the edges than some of his other projects, but he has a good time with it, that's for sure. One of the more iconic cars in Denny's collection is this 1934 Ford 5-window coupe. This is a car that Denny has driven thousands and thousands of miles, and you know, is a car that he's had since the 1980s. This is another car we have tons of pictures of through the years, including a picture of it when Denny first bought it. It was already kind of street rotted a little bit, but it's kind of this champagne color, and he changed a lot of things on it. And one of the coolest pictures to me of all time is my dad and Denny and a couple other guys out in the driveway of our house painting this car. Now, to give you a little bit of background on that, my dad didn't usually paint cars outside. He would normally do that inside the garage. But back then, there was really no such thing as high build primer. The paint would actually build up better than the primer would, because back then he was just using lacquer primer, and you couldn't really get a good build on it without it cracking. So he would paint the car and then block sand the paint and then paint it again. So that's what he's doing here. This is his first paint job on the car, and then he's going to go back and block it. But to me, it's just cool. They're outside, no shirt on, no mask, no nothing. I mean, this is the 80s, so they didn't care about any of that kind of stuff. And it's just a really neat picture that goes way back with these guys. You can tell they're having fun, and you know, that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg as far as their fun goes. I mean, they have built so many cool cars over the years. Moving further back in the shop, there's a 1957 Dodge Town Wagon. This thing's sitting on a S10 frame and running gear. It runs and drives like a brand new vehicle, and he puts a bunch of miles on this one too. The flat green paint's super cool. It kind of gives it that military look, and you know, anything that he drives gets a lot of attention. So, you know, this is just another example of that. Now, if you know anything about pro street cars, or if you were around in the 80s and 90s, you remember the Cheese Whiz car that Scott Sullivan built. It got on the cover of magazines. I mean, it got all sorts of publicity. Now, this car is very similar to that. It sits pretty close to the same. It's got kind of a cool orange color, but it's not that car, obviously. But he's put a bunch of miles on this one too. It doesn't get driven as much as it used to, but still a very functional piece of his collection, and still a very cool piece of his collection. I love the stance. I love the color. Everything about this car is cool. Sitting outside his shop is a 1958 Nomad, which he's had for lots of years. Moving on to location number 2, this is actually his yard where he lives. There's quite a few projects sitting outside here. One of them is a 90s Chevrolet truck that's got 44-inch tires on it, lifted way up. This is actually a truck that my brother bought years ago, and this thing was, I mean, it was slick. It sounded good. It was like one step below a monster truck in my mind when I was a kid. I mean, it's just a giant. And he ended up selling it to Denny, and Denny's kept it all these years. It's still functional, but it's not quite as shiny as it used to be. Another cool piece that was built at my dad's shop was a 65 C10 truck. It's got about a 95 model step-side bed on it, back when that was kind of the cool thing to do, to put a new bed on an old truck. Doesn't get driven quite as much as it used to, and the paint's starting to show its age a little bit. Now, this Chrysler station wagon has a pretty cool story. I actually bought it from Corky Coker. He had bought it on his TV show called Backroad Gold. I bought it from him about a year later, and we did a little bit of stuff to it. Well, ultimately, Denny bought it from us and continued working on it and got it running and driving. And, you know, it's just a really cool piece. This is a very solid, very buildable car, and it's super cool. The insides of these things are like really futuristic. It's got a push-button automatic transmission, and a lot of cool details on it. The Chevrolet station wagon sitting next to the Chrysler is a car he bought from Texas and drove it home. All right, let's go to location number 3. This time it's a barn that's got a really cool 51 Mercury, another fiberglass bodied car that sat at my dad's house for many years. And Denny brought it home, and he's done some work on it over the past few years. And he's put these Cadillac bumpers on there. You know, he's kind of slowly picked away at it. But again, this is another car that, you know, is capable of driving around the block. Moving further back into the barn, you'll see a really crazy square body Chevrolet truck. This thing is lifted up. It's got 44-inch tires on it. The fenders have been cut out for clearance, and it's got a chopped top. Now, this truck used to be a pro street truck, and Denny changed the frame out, put four-wheel drive frame, jacked it up, put these big tires on it, and it doesn't get used a whole lot anymore, but it's still a really neat piece. He's got quite a few other projects sitting back here in the weeds and in the briars that don't get quite as much attention, but they're still pretty cool. And then inside this block building is a kit car, like a GT40 style kit car, fiberglass body, pretty neat little piece. I'm not sure his plans on this one, but it's pretty cool. Sitting in between two buildings is a chopped 56 F100 pickup. This is a project that's been sitting for a long time. You can see the Bondo coming apart on the roof, and obviously it's been took apart for a while. But it's got some really neat front runners on it, some little slotted mag front runners. I love that kind of stuff. And then he's got a Jeep project over here, and I spotted something in that Jeep that really got my attention, and I want to tell you about it here. It was a chrome tube axle. And I just assumed it was probably off of one of his old T-buckets, or who knows, he might have picked it up at a swap meet. But I went over there and I asked Denny about it, and he said that came out of the funny car. And I was blown away because he raced a funny car years ago, and it's a car that me and my dad have bought, and we own it now. And this was the original axle out of that car. He said, now it's bent, but you're welcome to have it. So I grabbed it, and we put it in the truck because, I mean, this is like the best souvenir I could ever imagine, because this is an original piece to a really cool old drag car that we've got. And even though we're not going to use it on that car, we're going to hang it on the wall. It's definitely a cool piece of that car's history. Moving on to location number 4, you're going to see a lot of cars sitting outside, so be prepared to see some cool stuff sitting out in the weather. And it all starts with this really cool GMC fire truck. And as we go further back towards the woods, we're going to see about a 50 model Chevrolet truck that's got a chop top. It's got a Corvette rear end. It's got a big block Chevrolet that absolutely beats the ground. I wish I had a video of it running, but this truck hasn't been on the road in quite a while. Behind it is a late 40s Ford Coupe, and it's one of the few vehicles in Denny's collection that's got a Ford motor in it. Moving further back is a 34 Ford 5-window coupe, and this thing is rough. I mean, it's got some crazy body modifications. It's got a chop top. Somebody's filled in the deck lid. I mean, they've done some pretty serious work, and it's got probably 5 gallons of Bondo in it, maybe more. But this car actually used to sit at my dad's shop, and I can remember as a kid it was in flat black primer, and I would take a piece of chalk out there and draw a set of flames on the car. Then the rain would wash it off, and I'd go back and make another set of flames and maybe try a different design. And it was cool that my dad let me do that. But at the time, it was actually a functional car. They could drive it around the block. It had a small block Chevy with a tunnel ram, and you know, sort of their patented big and little tire combination. And it was a pretty neat looking hot rod, but when you look real close, it's pretty rough. Now this Ford Coupe is a really cool piece. This is something that Denny came up with several years ago. It's the Kool-Aid Kid, and it's a late 40s Ford Coupe. It's rough, it's rusty, but it's got a 427 cubic inch big block Chevrolet in it, and you know, that's just kind of his thing. Stuff a big block in there and take off down the road. And one of the cool experiences with this car is that he drove it up to Maryville, Tennessee to 411 Dragway. We all drove up together in a group to the Rat Rod Rumble many years ago now. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I think it was 2007. That we all got together. I drove my old Henry J, which was a rusty piece of junk on an S10 frame. He drove the Kool-Aid Kid, and a few other guys came with us, and we made a really fun road trip out of it. As we walk into this barn, you'll see a Buick convertible, and that's one of several cars that he's bought out of a Texas junkyard and then driven all the way back to Tennessee. And he's been doing this stuff way before roadkill made it popular, and he's been having a ball with these cars. He'll piece them together, and part of the adventure is making it home. You know, roadside repairs, all that stuff, you know, he's been doing it for years. As we get further back in the barn, you'll see this mid-70s Corvette, and it's looking pretty rough, but really all this thing needs is a wash job, because this car was really slick at one time. It's another car that my dad painted. This thing was actually underwater, and they saved it and brought it back, painted it, put a big block in it, of course, and you know, fixed the interior, really made this a really nice show car in the 80s. During this time, Denny's job was at the Oster factory in Dayton, and they made toaster ovens and all kinds of different appliances and things like that. So they had a full chrome shop inside the building, and he would take his car parts and run it through the chrome shop, and he had all sorts of cool chrome stuff. So under the hood of this car, at one time, he had chrome stuff all throughout it, and a lot of his other cars had custom chrome pieces that he had done himself. Behind the barn is Denny's boneyard. Now, I've heard for years Denny talk about going out in the woods and getting some parts to put together a car. Now, I've known for all these years that he's had this boneyard, but I've never actually seen it. So we're going to go take a little adventure, do a little exploring in the woods, and take a look at some of these kind of abandoned projects, parts cars, scrap iron, just a little bit of everything back here. One of the cool pieces back here is this 1954 Chevrolet sedan delivery. Again, this car sat at my dad's house for several years. They kind of had it dressed up with some weld wheels and stuff, but you know, when they really kind of, I guess, gave up on this project, they brought it over here to the woods, and it hasn't moved since. Tucked in behind that sedan delivery is a Plymouth Valiant station wagon. Also in that same area is a Chevy Love that, you know, a lot of us guys around here call them cab trucks. That basically put them on a K5 Blazer frame and kind of make a woods buggy out of it. And that's what this thing is. You know, it's probably not something you'd want to drive on the road, but it does real good out in the woods. Moving back through the woods, we'll see some more parts cars and random parts and random stuff everywhere. We've got an Olds Omega sitting here, a four-door Nova parts car, and even piled up in sort of a, you kind of have to squint to see it, there's an old Ford Bronco, like the ones that are worth a bunch of money. There's one of those tucked in the woods here that is kind of an abandoned project, I guess you could say. I really like this chopped F100 cab. It's about a 53 to 55 model. You know, there's not a whole lot here to it, just the cab. It's been chopped and mudded up, and pretty neat looking design. I mean, there's a lot of ways to mess up a chopped top, but this is a cool one. You can tell he's cleaned out a little bit here. You can see a few of these cars that are just surrounded by briars. There's an old Cadillac, an Olds Toronado, and then there's this 59 Chevrolet Impala, two-door hardtop, and somebody's cut the dash out of it. You know, it's a pretty rough car. There's all sorts of Chevrolet truck parts back in here, fenders, doors, anything you can think of, cabs, frames, you know, just all sorts of stuff. Old Chevy Monte Carlos, there's a Buick LeSabre back here, just lots and lots of random 60s, 70s, and 80s cars. They've been sitting here forever and ever. I mean, they're pretty much rotten, but it's still cool to see them out here. You can't tell much about it, but this is a Chevy Vega that's flipped upside down. I mean, it is just about completely rotted away. But he told us a whole story about it. He bought it for like 130 bucks because he wanted the motor out of it for another Chevy Vega. And, you know, it just basically was a parts car. It sat here for years, and it's pretty much rotting back into the earth now. So as we get further back into the woods, it's obvious that these cars have not moved in many years. They haven't even been touched. But there was two cars that I really wanted to see, and I wanted to hear Denny tell the story about them. So we made our way back through the briars and through the sticks, and one is a 55 Chevrolet two-door Post. This car is a car that he raced and drove on the street. It had a big block Chevrolet in it. It had giant ladder bars that sat up real tall, and he wrecked this car on the street. The other car is a 65 Chevelle. He wrecked it at Brainerd Optimus Dragstrip back in the 70s when it was still a quarter-mile track. And he's going to tell you exactly what happened. It's a crazy story, and it's a wonder he's still with us.
Come dinner time, we go flying out through there, bottom of the hill there, and first, second, hit third gear, and they built a new house on the hill, and there's about that much mud running all the way across that road, just like grease. I hit that, man. She come around, got her back, come around, and I said, there's going to be a car coming over the hill. I'm going to hit it. There was a triangle of gravels at the other house there, and I tried for that triangle, and I hit those gravels that come all around, went off that bank, hit around its top. And old Butch Williams with me, it threw him out.
Oh my goodness.
And I was, after it landed on the top, it was back over on its wheels, broke the front wheel off of it, and backwards into a bank. And I was, well, my hand was hurting real bad. I had a wood grain steering wheel on it. I looked and I just jerked that wheel backwards when it hit, and I had splinters all my hand. Anyway, Butch was laying out there. He about first to that tin truck. He's going, you tell he couldn't breathe. I run over. I was trying to get the car stopped up on the road there. get up, call ambulance. Call ambulance. And he said, go. He's coughing and hacking. He said, just. I run over there. He said, just knock the wind out. Everybody asked him how he survived the wreck. He was about as skinny as that bar. He said, I climbed up the glove box. That's how the ladder bars run from the back all the way up here, and they had these grater blades welded on there. You can put it on a concrete bridge and you can pull the wheels. Big block in it. And then see modified production down at Brainerd. And we doing time trials. I didn't have no brakes. Broke a rubber line on the front, didn't know what it was. But anyway, in the strip, you know how it turns, it banks up. So I threw me up in there. I just steered for the least amount of trees when I hit my brakes and didn't have any. And I couldn't get it down because I took the synchronizer, every other one off, so I could just jerk it, you know, going gear. So. And 2 weeks before this happened, a boy got killed down there, and they come through and cut the trees off, you know, tried to get to him. Anyway, I collared a trigger on this thing, coming through there, he flipped it upside down and I busted the bottom out of the creek. And the only thing that was sticking out was his trunk lid. So I said, now I'm gonna unbuckle my belt and I'm gonna fall. I was ready to fall, but I was forgetting I was underwater. So I unbuckled my belt. I tried to get out the dash, couldn't see nothing. Tried to get out the dash, tried to get out over here. There's a log in this window. I went all 4 ways, couldn't get out. Anyway, so I finally tried again. I was starting to hurt to death for air that time. And I took my helmet off and I started this again, this way. And I knew there was a tree through this window. And I finally come out, the car being upside down. I felt my face hit. I thought it was an air pocket, is what I thought it was. And I like this and I breathed. I was sitting there breathing. And like I say, I said a little prayer. I'm looking, you picture this thing upside down. I'm looking up at the trunk lid. And that's the first time I could see anything. I open, you know, and I'm underneath the trunk lid. I come out the back lights and said, thank you, Lord. And I get out there, they're still running time trials. And I'm sitting there soaking wet, I'm cut up a little bit. But anyway, I'm holding my helmet. Finally I said, hey, take me for a ride back up there, guys. I said, I'm in the creek. I'm soaking wet. They just kept passing me up, you know.
They didn't realize you'd run off the end, I guess.
No.
Man.
Oh, and then they tried to put me in the ambulance. I wouldn't go in there, so I'm all right. And so they took me back down there. A reporter, I guess it was. He said, you know, just the back of the car sticking out of water. And they said, get back in there. I said, I'm not getting back in there. You get in there. They want to take a picture of me down the creek, okay? But I wouldn't go for that. So it just destroyed that engine. I mean, it destroyed the car, but the engine was it just sucked it in. Them 2.4s, that big turnaround, it sucked it in. And the piston stopped, but the crank kept going. Yeah, I wish they kept some of those rods. They're just so mangled up, you wouldn't believe it. And it took 2 records to get it out, and the officials came down there, and they got in the car, and they said, we're going 1/8 of a mile. I was the guy, right or wrong, that made them decide to go to 1/8 of a mile, because you had no stopping room. Everything come out all right. And like I say, I sure had fun, that thing, and that's why I keep it. I try to keep, like, I go down there every now and then and say a little prayer. Thank you, Lord. Yeah, that'd been it for me.
We spent the better part of the day going through the buildings and the boneyard and all this big collection. And I brought my dad with me because him and Denny have been buddies forever, 40 plus years that they've been really good friends. And I brought my brother Matt because he grew up around Denny. He watched a lot of these cars be built. He has heard a lot of these stories, and you know, he had a really good time getting to see some of these cars that he remembers from his childhood. And then, of course, you know, I enjoyed going through it because I've heard about the boneyard for years. I've heard about the woods, and I've never got to see it before. So getting to walk through there and see some of those abandoned projects and things was really fun. And I brought Carly along with us, but didn't put her out in the woods. There was a lot of briars and it was really cold outside, so she stayed tucked away in the truck while we went out and had fun in the woods. These are cars and trucks that we didn't get to see when we did the original video on his collection about a year ago. Now, he's got tons of cars. They're scattered all over the place, and sometimes they're scattered in other people's yards. So in this case, this is his buddy Benny's place. So it's Denny and Benny. They've been buddies for lots of years. They've built a lot of cars together. They work pretty well together, it looks like, because they make a lot of progress. When they're together, they get some work done. So let's take a look at some of these forgotten projects that are stashed over here sort of around the woods, and we'll take a look at some of their current projects that they've been chipping away at here over the last few months. The first thing that got my attention was this little Chevy Vega. Now, I love these little Vegas. They make really fun street cars. They're lightweight. You can cram a V8 in there. Obviously, this one has been a hot rod at some point in its life. You can see it's got weld wheels on it with little front runners. And inside you can see a monster tack. This thing obviously had some kind of a small block in it at some point, but it's been sitting out here for quite a while. Next, we got a pretty odd Dodge truck. Now, this is a Power Ram. Denny said that he used this thing for a parts truck for a Dodge Charger that he's building. Now, I get interested anytime I see a big pile of tires like this, and I'm already spotting some race tires here. Looks like some little front runners, some slicks, and then lots of just random radials and things that I don't know what they came off of, but this is just kind of a scrap pile for tires and wheels. But over here next to it is a Ford Falcon, and this looks like the perfect drag car project. You can see somebody's already cut out the floor and all the suspension. This is just the body shell itself. And I'm not real good on Falcons, but it looks like maybe a 64 or 65. Really neat looking car. It looks very buildable. It's not totally rusty as far as the body's concerned. You could make a killer old school drag car out of this. Next up is about a 46 through 48 Chevrolet, and you can see it's got that slope back sedan roof, which is really cool, awesome late 40s design. As we make our way through, we see a crushed S10. It's got a bunch of parts piled up on it. Probably got a decent frame under it that they might use for another project. And then we got another 46 to 48 Chevrolet. And as we turn around here, we see a 55 or maybe a 56 Chevrolet truck. Now, this is one of the trucks with a small back window. The large back window is sometimes more desirable, but I've always liked the small window. I've always liked the step side. Even though the Cameo got all the attention and the later Fleet side beds were pretty popular too, but these small window step side trucks are really one of my favorites. This one is actually sitting on a Ford chassis, which is kind of strange, especially for Denny George. Most everything is on Chevrolet stuff, but the Ford frame made this thing sit nice and low. The wheelbase is pretty much right on the money, and you know, it should work out pretty good as far as hitting the road and driving real nice. And of course, everywhere I go, it seems like there's an old drag car sitting there. And in this case, it's a mid-70s Camaro. Now, this thing, it looks like it's been painted a bunch of different times. It's orange now, and if you look up under here, you can see the big aluminum wheel tubs. It does have leaf springs, which don't look to be very narrow, but you can see this thing obviously at some point had a very narrow rear end. You can see out here that it's got Lexan windows that are completely fogged over. You can't even see inside of it. And then as you get around to the front, you can see they've tied into that subframe with the roll cage bars, and you can also see that they've cut way into the cowl and the firewall so they could set that engine back. So this is a pretty good setup back in the day. This thing has obviously been off the track for a long time, but it's still a pretty cool piece, even though it's kind of sitting here neglected. Sitting next to it is an 80s Monte Carlo Super Sport. Looks like a pretty good project here, but it needs a little bit of attention. Now, this one needs a lot of attention. This 68 to 72 Nova has been sitting here a while, and it's pretty much stripped out and gutted. There's not much left of it. Now, this 59 Chevrolet Apache pickup truck is a really nice piece. It's pretty much complete. You can see that this is, I guess, a 3/4 ton. It's got big 8-lug wheels on it, but it's got cool patina. It's got a little bit of rust here and there, of course, but would make a killer project. Now, you might have a different name for them where you're from, but around here we call these cab trucks. Now, this is a S10, and you can see that it's been scooted back on the frame. It's probably got a K5 Blazer or some kind of full-size frame under it. You can see that cab's been scooted back. Everything's scooted back to try to help weight transfer. This one's pretty cool. It's got like a hoist on the back of it, and you know, got some big old tires. Even though they're starting to lose some air, they're still really neat. I love these old cab trucks like this. I'm also liking this 70s Jeep. It's got some aluminum slotted wheels on it and some big mud tires, about as big as you could possibly put on there without having to lift it up more. This late 60s or early 70s Dodge is a pretty cool piece. It's got some really cool patina with that turquoise paint, and it's got a set of Chevrolet Rally wheels on it, which probably drive the Mopar guys nuts, but they look pretty cool on there. Now, this next car appears to be about a 41 Chevrolet Coupe. Now, this is a car that my dad and Denny knew back in the 80s, and it ended up here at the boneyard because a tree fell on it. And you can see it absolutely killed that top. But you can see that the rest of the body is actually pretty good. There's just not much saving the roof on this thing. Other projects include two Chevrolet C10 trucks, both of them short wheelbase fleet side trucks. Both of them got a little bit of a hot rod stance. Both of them really cool. They got a little bit of rust, a little bit rough around the edges, but they'd make really cool drivers. Tucked in behind the two Chevrolets is a Ford F100. Looks like a four-wheel drive, long wheelbase. These things were good work trucks, but I'm not sure what they got planned for this one. So now we need to go look at the current projects. These are the cars that are actually getting worked on right now. And the first one we're going to look at is a 47 Chevrolet Coupe. Now this is a project that's been going on for a while. Benny has been making some good progress on it, and he's painted the frame, painted the firewall. He's ready to start going back together with this thing. And you can see it's got a good looking set of rally wheels on it and some good fat radial tires. And you can also see that the body is in real good shape on this car. It's pretty solid. Sitting next to it is a 66 Chevelle. This is another really solid car. You can see that the doors have been painted and hung on there. They look really good. The rest of the body looks nice and solid. No engine or anything as far as the front end goes, but the front sheet metal is sitting over here to the side. Another cool car sitting out here is a 67 Camaro. I didn't hear a lot of details about this one, but it looks like a pretty complete car. It's sitting a little bit low. It's got Krager SS wheels on it. It's a pretty cool looking project, and it's sitting here in primer. I'm assuming they got some work that needs to be done on it, but I'd be pretty happy with it just like it sits. Finally, the big reveal of one of Denny's most recent projects. This is a 1968 Dodge Charger. Now, if you know about Denny's other projects, there's not many Mopars. It's almost all Chevrolets and Fords. And even if he does have a Ford, they mostly have Chevrolet engines. But anyways, this 68 Charger is a project that they have brought from the ground up. It was a pretty rough car, but they have picked away at this thing, and it's looking really good. They've got the engine all put together. It's fresh and new, and they've been working on getting the body panels lined up right. And they're eventually going to get that hood on it, but this is a really cool project. You can see that it's already kind of got the hot rod look. It's got some cool looking 5-spoke wheels on it, and this thing is going to make a really cool ratty muscle car when they get it out on the road.